bringing stats like a kingpin. MMA knowledge, nieces, nephews all lean in, breaking down fights, codes that daddy supreme on. Just a tip show, he's cooking up a dream. Uncle Weezy, he the man, dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand, MMA guru, more than just a fan. Wanna know the numbers? Weezy got them cataloged, from the fighters reach down to how many times they dog. Just a tip living, breaking it down slick, hit you with the knowledge, won't miss a single trick. Uncle Weezy, he the man, dropping fight facts, got it all on hand. He the stat attack grand, MMA guru, more than just a fan. Balls deep predictions, he be making those calls, getting in the details, opponents feeling small. From jabs to takedowns, got the whole fight ID. Uncle Weezy spitting truth, no lie, keep it G. Blow the horn, blow the horn. Stat Daddy Weezy not showing no scorn. Fight night king, dummy wearing the crown. Break it down for the peeps, never looking like a clown.
Yes. What's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time if you're watching live. We got UFC 304 coming up this Saturday in the middle of the night in Manchester, England. But for us Americans, it's going to be right at the usual time that we normally see cards. Headline, Bilal, remember the name, Muhammad, going up against Leon Edwards for the welterweight championship of the world. We got the co-main event for the interim heavyweight championship. We already got Tom Aspinall as the interim champion. He is going to be facing off against Curtis Blades. We got 3 more fights on the main card. We've got a total of 14 fights on this card to break down. So we have got an absolute ton of work to do this week. I've got a ridiculous amount of notes for you guys on these fights. Right now, even though it's in 14-point font so my eyes could see it, it's 39 pages. So we've got a lot of work to do today. So let's do a brief recap of last week. Let's say hello to the chat, and let's get right into it, you guys. I'm going to share my screen with you guys here and show you guys what we did last week. Very good week last week. We were up 5.13 units tracked. We had a 2-unit bet on the finish-only prop for Thomas Peterson. Scorecards equals no action. That was a push because it went to decision. The probability parlay did not cash. That was the under 1.5 rounds for Garcia versus Choi. That cashed, but we had the under 2.5 rounds for Brzeski versus Halabaugh. Several chances for that to finish, but it didn't. We also had a losing bet, a quarter unit, on Jun Yong Lee to win by submission at plus 750. But the winning bets were Cody Durden, Bruno Silva under 2.5 rounds at plus 200 for 1 unit. That hits. We had Doo-Ho Choi to win by KO in rounds 1 or 2 at a number that was about, I think, plus 350-ish. We hit that one for, let's see, about 3.23 units. We cashed on the Doo-Ho Choi second round knockout. And we had the fight to not start round 4 for Lemos versus Jandiroba. That one hit for us as well. Up 5.13 units and 89% return on investment for the year. Over the last 10 weeks or so, we're on a nice little upward streak that you can see right here on that trend line there in orange. So we're starting to pick it up, man. You know, like last year was just a lot of ups and downs, just kind of treading water, barely above even. And this week we're a little bit above even, but we got a lot of work to do, and we need to keep this upward trend going. And the way that we do that is we just continue to put in the research. And if you want to research these fights, you got to check out the Patreon, you guys. This show is something that is normally a Patreon-only show, as well as Probability, which was available on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel yesterday. Link to Probability is in the description of this video. Link to Stat Diggers is in the description of this video. And the link to the Patreon and the Dub Club as well, where you can get access to the advanced stats package that I have for every fighter on the card, the matchup stats, which show the fighter stats side by side and also compared to the divisional benchmarks in tail of the tape, pro and UFC experience, finish stats overall and in the UFC, record to the knockout, the submission, and the decision in the UFC and overall, significant striking offense, distance striking stats, which has the significant striking stats, but we strip out all the clinch and the ground striking stats, and we strip out all the time spent in control time positions to isolate how fighters perform at distance striking range. That's all available. We also have clinch and ground striking stats. We have the grappling stats. We have the strength of schedule stats, the last 5 fights. That's all available. For $15 a month, you get those advanced stats. You get the matchup stats. You get all of my tracked picks. You get access to the Discord, and you get access to these fight write-ups that we see here every week. We got 39 pages here of fight write-ups for every fight on the card. So if you're the type of person that likes to do your own research, there's a lot of phenomenal products that are available here to help you do exactly that. Have access to all the stats, all the trends, all the prior fights. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, we've got the probability package, which includes access to my over-under betting model and to my prop betting model, which allows you to find, win conditions, implied probabilities of lines, comparing those to the past performance of the fighters. There's a bunch of fantastic information on this Patreon that can help you make better long-term decisions as a gambler. And even better, it's a way to get access to this pay-per-view only work every single week instead of it just being here on YouTube for free during the numbered events. It's the best way to support my work. I encourage you to go check out the page, look at the stats that you see here every week on these shows, and support the work. So please consider joining the Patreon. What's up with you guys in the chat here? We've got my guy Buffo on the beat in the room saying, salute Weezy. Oi, what is up, Buffo? We got Olajuwon Dream in the room saying, oi. We got Dixon Cider in the room saying, Prophet, thank you for making this one free. It's going to be free this week, but if you want it next week, it's going to cost you. But you join the Patreon, you get to support my work, and you get access to a bunch of statistics that would not be able to be found anywhere else. We got TH in the room saying, oi. We got Presidente Pedro in the room saying, oi. We got Kristen in the room saying, oi. Thank you for gifting us with all the content this week, Uncle Weezy. God bless. God bless you. Thank you for the kind tweet promoting probability yesterday. Appreciate that. We've got Pickle Kush in the room saying, oi, what up, what up, all? This sentence makes me feel old. It's too late. I'm not going to make it. Catch you on the rewatch. I like Parsons this week. I rate American wrestling much higher than UK wrestling. I'm looking forward to talking about that fight. We got Tim and Nathan in the room saying, oi. We got Paku in the room saying, oi, what's up, Unc? Hoping you and your girl are doing okay. Feel for yous. Yeah, Sonny's face is healing up very well. The doctor really likes what he sees, so it looks like it's going to be a very minimally invasive procedure when she does have it done. So she's healing up very well. We're healing up mentally from what happened and looking for things to start looking up and start getting better over here. So I appreciate the kind words, Paku. Let's stack these tickets, man. Let's get it. We got Chief Red Cloud in the room saying, Uncle Weezy, he the man. Appreciate you, Chief. We got Cameron 13 saying, oi. We got Rouses in the room saying, oi. Appreciate all the work you put in, Unc. Thank you for supporting the work on the Patreon, Rouses. A lot of you Patreon people are already here, and I appreciate each and every one of you. You make it possible for me to put in the time to do these breakdowns properly and give you all the necessary information every single week. We got the MetaHuman Project in the room saying, Weezy, I told people last card is a great betting card. Huge night for dogs, but they laughed at me. They doubted me. I made 10 units, and I feel like I left tons of money on the table. Yeah, man, it was close for me, too. I was this close to having 8 units if that Brzeski fight had finished under 2.5 rounds. And I also had another bet that did not track for some reason. It was a half unit on Hyder Emil rounds 2 and 3, and he gets it done in round 1. I mean, just crazy stuff. I felt like I was just a little bit off. It could have been like a 12 or 13 unit night, but I'll never be angry about a 5-unit night. Brady Stevens in the room saying, that intro song is catchy. I can't lie. Shout out to the Golden Octagon, my guy Matt, using AI to make that for me. It's phenomenal stuff. And I love the fact that he took the time to do that for me. So shout out Matt, the Golden Octagon, for that phenomenal intro that you guys get to see every week now. We got James in the room saying perfect timing. Just walked in, but the Papa Brew. Let's go, man. Chad Hero saying, hey, I never catch you live, Weezy. Love your eye for the game. Appreciate you, Chad Hero. Let's break down these fights, man. Aussie fight fan in the room saying Uncle Weezy into spot. Bringing stats like a kingpin. Let's go. Saying that shit is popping. Let's go, man. Chad Hero saying, who are you picking in Leon and Bilal? And can Bilal's pace actually wear on Leon enough to get him the W? Yeah, I think Bilal can fight the way that we thought Colby might fight in the last fight. But Colby, I mean, I guess Colby said he broke his foot in the first round. And if that's the case, maybe that's why he was unable to push a pace at all in that fight. But yeah, I think he can do what Colby was unable to do because he just didn't look like he had it. But I think Leon Edwards is a very, very difficult opponent to deal with. Leon is much bigger, much longer, and he moves really well. I think the fact that this is in the big cage is going to benefit Leon Edwards. We got Jester in the room saying, what's up, Unc? I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you, Jester. Thanks for hanging out, man. We got James saying, yo, perfect timing. He's popping a brew. He's got T.O. Weezy on. Let's go, James. Let's get it, man. The Cuban assassin in the room saying, Weezy, what it do? I see my Cuban brother, Tony Montana, in the frame right there. The world is ours. You know, he famously killed Emilio Rebenga, and that dude had it coming. So that's why I love my guy Tony Montana. One of the guys who really showed us what the American dream can be all about. Love Tony Montana. We got Olajuwon Dream in the room saying Bizalls, Dizeeps. Let's get it, man. K-Dog saying big pay-per-view weekend. Good luck. Let's get it, man. My guy Paul Vivret in the room saying, hey, Weezy. Hey, Paul. Thanks for checking in. We got Robin in the room saying, oh, I love the show. Just curious, is this your full-time job or do you also have another job? Hyped for the card. Can't wait for picks. Patreons is definitely worth it, y'all. Appreciate you, Robin. I'm working as hard as I can to make this my full-time job, you guys. I do hustle a little bit outside of this. It's just some part-time hustling. Very rarely do I do it. So in terms of this, I put easily 40 hours worth of work into this every week. I mean, like I mentioned to you guys, these are the fight write-ups. You know, this is literally 39 pages, you know, and I use it as a script. You know, I think it's great to write things down. When we write things down, we remember them. So yeah, I do put way too much work into this for what actually comes back my way in money. But the hope is to pull it all together, to get some better visuals, to really utilize some data science on the wealth of data that I have available at my fingertips, to really kind of pull it all together like butt cheeks and put together a product that I think will be super high level. And we're working on it. The probability package on the Patreon is something I'm extremely proud of. Go try to find anything like it stats wise out there, and you're going to come up snake eyes. So I'm still working on putting it all together so that it actually, so I'm not just working a full-time job doing this, but it actually pays like a full-time job. And that's going to be on me to continue improving the content on my end so that it will provide me with the kind of money I need in order to make it a full-time job. Appreciate the question, Robin. But you know, my full-time job tonight is to break down 14 fights for you guys. So let's just get right into it. 14 fights, 39 pages of notes. This is going to be a long show, but I'm going to try to drag us through it quickly and efficiently, you guys. Let's start talking about the first fight of the night. This one is Shauna Bannon. Mama B is a minus 160 favorite. She is the hometown fighter. She's Irish. She is a member of the United Kingdom, and she will be fighting pretty close to home here against the UFC newcomer in Alice Ardelean, plus 140 underdog. Fight doesn't go to decision, plus money here at plus 155. So let me get my notes over to the other page, and let's talk about, I'll get those matchup stats on the screen for you guys. And let's talk about Shauna Bannon and the trends here. Shauna is 30 years old. She's 5-1 as a pro, and she's 0-1 in the UFC so far. She lost her UFC debut against Bruna, Brasil in London back in July of last year. Shauna lost that fight by unanimous decision. She was a plus 130 underdog there. She was outstruck 56-54 and was taken down twice, gave up a little over 3 minutes of control time to Brazil. Prior to her UFC debut, Shauna was undefeated as a pro at 5-0. She had 2 fights in Invicta and 3 in Cage Legacy. And she also had an amateur career that lasted just under 3 years, where she went 9-3, with one of those losses coming against Dakota Zacheva. Bannon is currently on a 1-year layoff, and she had to pull out of a scheduled bout against Stephanie Luciano back in March of 2023. She will be matched up against Alice Ardelean, who's 32 years old and 8-5 as a pro. It's a short notice fight for the UFC debutante Alice Ardelean, as she accepted this fight on just over 1 week's notice, stepping in for Ravenna Oliveira. Alice is also on a long layoff, not having fought for almost a year. She's currently on a 5-fight winning streak, with her last loss coming against Weili Zhang back in 2016 was the last time that she lost. Her last fight was in August of 2023. It was against the 0 wins and 3 losses Dilia Supaya, and Alice shaved her ass, dropping her twice, getting a body lock takedown that resulted in a rear naked choke just over 3 minutes into round 1. And prior to that, Alice won the EFC Strawweight Championship via doctor's stoppage at the end of round 1, in what was a really, really fun fight to watch against Jessica Monami. But Shauna Bannon, the advantages that she's going to have in this fight, she's going to be bigger. 1.5 years younger as well, but she's 2 inches taller. She's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, and she's a switch stance fighter fighting an orthodox fighter. That's an on-paper advantage as well. Shauna's got a little more UFC experience with 1 fight, 15 minutes of octagon time, and I think Shauna's got the better kickboxing. She's got a Taekwondo striking background. She's got a bladed stance. She's constantly switching stances, and she throws teep and push kicks with her lead leg and goes into the opposite stance as her opponent to throw her power kicks to the head and to the body. And she likes, when her opponent is orthodox, she can go southpaw and blast that kick to the liver. Shauna stayed busy at distance striking range against Bruna Brasil in her debut. She outlanded Bruna 51-39 at distance and stayed very busy, out attempting her 139-72. Shauna's 2-0 to the KO as a pro, and her extensive Taekwondo and kickboxing background has her most comfortable in the cage when she's at distance striking range. Now, Alice Ardelean is the more experienced fighter. She's got 7 more fights as a pro and about 50 more minutes of cage time and about 10 more years, actually, as a professional mixed martial artist. Alice is the better finisher. She's finished 7 of her 8 pro wins inside the distance. She's got 3 submissions and 2 knockouts. When she hurts her opponent on the feet, she smells blood and she swarms. She looks for that finish. When she gets fights to the ground, she stays heavy on top. She lands ground and pound to help her cause damage and potentially advance position. And once she does that, she's capable of finishing with ground and pound or a rear naked choke. Alice Ardelean is going to be the more powerful striker, in my opinion. She tends to be more of a point fighter, or I should say Shauna tends to be more of a point fighter at range, while you regularly see Alice throwing her hands with hate in her heart, landing knockdowns, and showing the kind of power that can finish fights, at least against the lower level competition that she's faced thus far. The grappling advantage, in my opinion, goes to Alice Ardelean. She does have solid body lock takedowns, and once she gets to the fight to the ground, she can land ground and pound and look to get to her opponent's back. We saw Shauna get taken down twice in the Brasil fight, and both times she was taken down, she was unable to get back to her feet. Both ladies have similar grappling games, but I think Alice would be more likely to go for takedowns and potentially do more damage should the fight get to the ground. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Alice Ardelean, as she's fought the slightly better level of competition overall due to the fact that she has more fights. She's been in there against UFC veterans like Christina Stanciu, Diana Belbita, and the current UFC strawweight champion, Weili Zhang. So interesting late notice switch for Shauna Bannon here. She was originally scheduled to fight Ravenna Oliveira and now steps in the OnlyFans sensation out of Romania in Alice Ardelean. She's out of Romania, but she trains in England. Ardelean puts the ass in Alice, you guys. Let me tell you, but she's more than that. She's experienced, she's powerful, she's fairly well tested, and she has a nose for the finish, both on the feet and on the mat with her ground and pound and submissions. And when she advances to dominant positions, she does very well. She's on almost a year-long layoff, as is Shauna. But compound that with the fact that this is on 1 week's notice, and that most definitely plays to Bannon's favor here. Shauna has the measurables advantages, being 1.5 years younger, 2 inches taller. She's got an 8-inch reach advantage too, which is going to be significant. And she's a switch stance fighter against an orthodox. Shauna does a good job of staying busy at range, throwing a wide variety of weapons while using her kicks to maintain range and score points. Shauna's conditioning looks a little bit better than Alice's, but I do think Alice might be the one more likely to land big shots at range or find moments in the grappling exchanges. Bannon is minus 180 on the money line, but her finish-only prop is a pick'em. So the bookies agree that Alice is more likely to win moments in this fight, I think. This is a fairly low-level strawweight fight by UFC standards, but the way I see these ladies are fairly well matched. I think the value side on the money line is Ardelean due to the power and the grappling differentials, along with the more explosive finishing ability and experience advantages that she has. But if Alice doesn't land big shots at range or find a takedown or two, then I think Shauna is going to be the fighter more likely to win the minutes at distance striking range due to her ability to maintain range with her kicks, slow down the offense of her opponents with the constant stance switching, and score more points. So I'm going to pick Shauna Bannon due to the fact that she had a full training camp, and a short notice OnlyFans sensation isn't the kind of fighter I feel I can count on to go out there and win minutes over a 15-minute fight on short notice. And the likelihood of her finding a finish against an opponent of Bannon's quality is probably pretty unlikely. So I'll lean towards Bannon by decision. And even though I feel like this fight is going to be close and Ardelean is live at the number, I'm still going to go ahead and just pick Shauna Bannon, Mama B, to win this fight by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. The MetaHuman Project saying, I agree with your take on the Hadley fight. I just don't get the line here. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one for sure. Robin saying you should try to post more reels, short clips. It's a really great way to get engagement online nowadays. Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. I was just telling my girlfriend that, like, I've got to rethink the way that I do my research and my methodology on breaking down these fights, because I put in entirely too much work and I write too much and my breakdowns are a little bit too long. I got to find a way to have a certain methodology for every fight and like kind of like just break it down to the bullet points and be able to kind of like sum it up real quick in a shorter video that will be great for marketing purposes. So I'm with you, Robin. It's in there. We got Justin J saying, "Oi, Uncle Weezy, love your content. Keep it 100. Appreciate you, Justin. Thanks for stopping by." Real Fight Pick saying Bannon is garbage. She uses a left kick and that's it. Give me Alice plus 3.5. Now, what is Alice plus 3.5? 304. Because I like the Alice Ardelean finish only, still minus 115, and plus 3.5 points is minus 260. So that's just too wide for me. I wouldn't want to leave. I wouldn't do that personally. Fight go to the distance is fight to finish inside the distance. Fight doesn't go to decision is plus 155. Not fight goes. Oi, what's up, Weezy, says Colby Saul. What's going on, Colby? We got YBP in the room saying, yeah, it does mean not to go the distance. We got my guy Broke DGen is in the room saying, oi, what's up, Broke DGen? And we got Olajuwon Dream saying Shannon and Molly parlay. I think they're cousins or something. Yeah, dude. Shauna and Molly do look alike. I saw a picture on Twitter with them next to each other, and it was they definitely look alike for sure. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight here as we've got Mick Parkin at minus 280 going up against Lukasz Brzeski plus 240. Fight doesn't go to decision here, is at plus 135 for this fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen and let's talk about Mick Parkin. He's 28 years old. He's undefeated at 9-0 as a pro, and he's 3-0 in the UFC so far. He's strung together 3 straight unanimous decision wins to start his UFC career. He made his debut back in July of 2023 against Jamal Pogues, won a 30-27 unanimous decision there as a plus 135 underdog. Next up, he won a 29-28 unanimous decision over Caio Machado as a massive minus 360 favorite. And he's coming off a 29-28 unanimous decision win over Muhammad Usman as a minus 150 favorite. Mick's on a roll right now. He's huge for the division. He has good boxing and good wrestling, and he's still only 28 years old, and he's adding to his toolbox while learning on the job. Now he's going to be facing off against Lukasz Brzeski. Lukasz, 32 years old. He's 9 wins, 4 losses, and a draw as a pro, and he's 1 win and 3 losses in the UFC so far. Lukasz made his UFC debut in August of 2022 against Marcin Budaj. He lost that fight by a controversial split decision, and he was a plus 240 underdog in that fight. Then he lost a dominant 30-26 unanimous decision to Carl Williams as a plus 200 underdog. That was a fight where I max bet Carl Williams at minus 200 earlier in the week, and that cashed easily. He then was knocked out in the first round by Waldo Cortez Acosta as a plus 185 underdog, and he's coming off a 29-28 unanimous decision win over Valter Walker as a plus 200 underdog. Lukasz is a high-volume striker for a heavyweight. He stays busy, tries to outwork his opponents. It should be an interesting heavyweight matchup between 2 young guys for the division. Parkin has the home field advantage, and he's currently a minus 280 favorite over Brzeski. So Parkin is 3.5 years younger, 1-inch reach advantage. I think Parkin's the better boxer, but it's probably going to be close. He hits harder, does Parkin. He's a little more technical and defensively responsible, and he's shown a little more durability at the UFC level. Lukasz has the better distance striking differential, but it's Parkin who's been a shade more accurate and defensively responsible. And he should, in my opinion, be the one landing the more eye-catching shots in this fight. And the minute winning in the grappling exchanges, I think that goes to Parkin as well. Mick has shown the ability to get takedowns when his opponents want to stand and stop his opponent's takedown attempts when he's the one who wants to keep it standing. Mick gets 1 takedown per 15 minutes. He's got 100% takedown defense, and he outcontrols his opponents 14% to 3.5%. Winning 80% of the control time positions in his fights. I definitely rate Parkin as the guy more likely to win minutes and moments should this fight hit the mat. But Brzeski is more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's got 6 more pro fights, a little more than an hour more of cage time, and he's got 1 more UFC level fight than Parkin. And Lukasz throws volume. I love that about Lukasz. He stays very busy out there. You can see this number here on the distance striking stats, which are right in this area, but 14.6 distance strike attempts per minute compared to only 10.6 for Parkin. So he does do a lot more at range, and he's attempting 5 more distance strikes per minute than the divisional average. He's landing 7.1. That's 2.9 more than the divisional average. And the striking accuracy at 48.5% and his defense at 61.5% are both above average for the division. In addition, that positive 2.9 distance striking differential that you see down here is excellent. If Lukasz keeps his fight standing and his opponent doesn't land bombs, he's going to stay busy, land as much or more than his opponents do, and stay in the fight. And the strength of schedule advantage also goes to Brzeski. He's fought the slightly more experienced brand of UFC competition with the better win-loss ratios. The combined UFC records of Mick Parkin's 3 UFC opponents is 5 wins and 4 losses, while for Brzeski, the combined records of his opponents at the UFC level, 13 wins and 3 losses. You can see that there, and this is 5 and 4 for Parkin. So Lukasz has been tested at a higher level so far, both in and out of the UFC, where you see Valter Walker, Walter Cortez Acosta, Carl Williams, and Martin Budaj compared to Pogues, Machado, and Muhammad Usman for Parkin. And then the level of regional scene competition that Mick Parkin faced was absolute bottom of the barrel guys. So this is an interesting matchup between 2 heavyweight minute winners here. Parkin is younger. He's bigger. He hits a little harder at distance, and I rate him as the guy more likely to win minutes with his wrestling, his top control, and his ground and pound. Lukasz has the overall and the UFC experience advantages. He throws a lot more volume on the feet. His distance striking metrics are better than Mick's, and he's faced the better brand of competition at the UFC level. I liked what I saw from Parkin in his UFC debut against Pogues. That's a tough guy to make your debut against, and Mick really shined in that performance. Next time out, he used his wrestling to get 3 takedowns and rack up over 6 minutes of control time to win minutes and wound up edging out a 29-28 unanimous decision there against Caio Machado, even though he got outstruck at distance 68-34, and he looked horrible against Mo Usman last time out, did Parkin, in my opinion. I challenge anyone to stay awake watching that fight. I think Lukasz can win the minutes at range here, or at least make it really close. Lukasz stays busy, he mixes up his targets well, and he fights through being tired. The problem is the takedown defense, though. If Mick doesn't like how it's going on the feet, he can take Brzeski down. Brzeski's got 33% takedown defense at the UFC level, and who's been controlled by his opponents for almost 37% of his total octagon time, while losing 93% of the control time positions that on the mat. So Mick needs to fight smart and mix in the wrestling. And if he does that, I see him winning a decision here, because Lukasz won't run away with the distance striking exchanges. But if Mick fights stupid and doesn't make Lukasz wrestle, he could wind up letting this fight slip away by letting Lukasz lead the dance at range, and we could see Mick get outworked on his way to a decision loss. I'll pick the younger guy fighting in front of his home crowd to get the win by decision here, but I think it's important to note that Lukasz really hasn't fought anyone with what we would consider big UFC power yet. Waldo Cortez Acosta knocked him out in the first round, though, so if someone does land clean on Lukasz, it could be nighty-night. I'll pick Mick Parkin to win by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if he landed a big shot and found a finish, and I also wouldn't be surprised if Mick Parkin doesn't fight smart and doesn't mix in the grappling. I wouldn't be surprised if Lukasz Brzeski wound up edging out a decision here. But my pick is going to be the hometown guy, Mick Parkin, to win this fight by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Got my guy, the Dogfather, in the room. What's up, dude? Good to see you hanging out in here. He's saying, don't hate Bannon late finish. Really? Yeah, I guess that's not bad, because I noticed, Dogfather, that Alice Arlene's conditioning in the 3rd round, she looks to be taking really deep breaths and slowing down. Add to that a 1-week weight cut down to 115. Short notice of the fight. She might not have been training. So potentially Bannon might be able to put it on her late. We got Spicy Pickle. I'd say Charles Oliveira weakness grappling. I have no idea what that means. We got Olajuwon Dream saying dead ass though. I swear I've heard them talk about it somewhere. Yeah, I know, right? I saw it on Twitter, and he's saying mixed season. Got it. We got my guy Dave in the room. What's up, dude? Saying, "Oi, Brzeski is an awful wrestler, and Parkin will be able to take him down at will, and that's why I'm picking Parkin." David, I'm with you there. My guy David is a member of the Patreon. Does some phenomenal work with underdog and prize picks over unders, and he posts those leans and reads that he has in the Discord. Appreciate you, David. Thanks for checking us out, man. We got Dogfather saying, not sure how Parkin is this big of a favorite. He was gassed from wrestling Machado and can't open mat wrestle. If it's 1-1 going into 3, Parkin bettors are gonna be sweating. Yeah, dude, I think he's got to fight smart, though. I do think he has to wrestle in order to kind of just pull away from Lukasz here, because I think Lukasz is going to be doing more at range. We got Ring a Ding Ding, you guys from Fresno, with the $2 donation, saying tight. Appreciate you, my man. Keeping the lights on here in your Uncle Weezy's studio. Got $2 coming in, and we'll take it, baby. Thank you for the donation, man. We got Broke Degens from Northern California, and you went to the Ortega Swanson Fresno card. Like, I've gone to almost every California card for 10 years, including Bellator. That's cool, man. Yeah, dude, Northern California, stand up. My guy Broke Degen in the room. And Ring a Ding Ding, you guys. The In-N-Out Burger logo. We got Yeetus with the $10 donation saying, "Oi, Weezy, 2024, keep grinding. Like and subscribe, scrubs. Plus, fade the baddie. My opinion. appreciate the kind donation to the show. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for checking in, and I'm looking forward to talking about that green fight for sure. We got Paku in the MMA saying, I think Parkin covers his money line. Good parlay piece there. I think if he wrestles, he probably will look fairly dominant here, but I think he's gonna need to wrestle because Lukasz' takedown defense is just not great. Alice short notice and she comes out rabies. Yeah, she might, man. And if that's the case, then that fight doesn't go to decision, could actually be pretty live there. Yeah, you seen it. Yep, agreed. UFC picks and balances in the room saying, will CLD get a finish? You're gonna have to stay tuned for the breakdown of that fight, but I think there's a very good chance that fight finishes inside the distance, and I'm kind of still figuring out how I want to play it. MetaHuman Project saying, my name is the MetaHuman Project, and I bet on Walter Walker. Lord forgive me. I'm not entirely sure Walter lost that fight. I thought the first round was very close, and I thought Walter definitely won the third round with the grappling, although he didn't land much on top. So, yeah, man. Maybe, sometimes guys in their debut, they just have their worst performance in their UFC debut, and then they get better from there. So we will see if Walter looks better the next time out. But I know the people that did lay the juice on him are very disappointed in themselves. But you always got to admit your mistakes, MetaHuman Project. Look in the mirror and find out how you can learn from them. And you're doing exactly that, my man. Appreciate you. And ring a ding. Ding, my guy, the Carrillo in the room saying the most blessed and greatest Greek, Uncle Weezy. I'm on Aspinall over 1.5 for plus 225. That's a huge number because right now the under 1.5, I think, is sitting around minus 175. So you must have got a really good number there before it moved. And I think that's going to end under 1.5 Carrillo. But I mean, if that's the thing, you don't know what these guys' game plans are. And if they come out with a more conservative game plan because it's a 5-round fight, then potentially we could see this thing cruise over, especially if Blades gets early takedowns and is able to hold Tom down early. We could see that go over, but I do think that this one is going to finish early. We got D Spearman in the room saying, Uncle Weezy, what's up, D? We got UFC picks and balances saying, I want some In-N-Out burger. Dude, so do I. I'm hungry. We got Steve Balboni saying Parkin money line plus over 1.5, same game parlay. Yeah, I like that, dude. I think that's a good look. I'd be surprised if Parkin got an early finish here, but I think it could happen. I think Brzeski is somebody that may or may not have really bad durability, but you're not going to find out, because Martin Buday is not knocking out anyone. Carl Williams isn't knocking out anyone. And even in his last fight, Brzeski, who did he fight again? Yeah, Walter Walker. That guy just tried to wrestle the whole time. He's not trying to knock out anyone. But Waldo knocked him out. And that's the only guy that Waldo's knocked out at the UFC level, despite the fact that Waldo's got like 4 or 5 wins at this point. So I think that that's very important. We got Uncle, remember the name Weezy, 4th round sub over Leon. Let's check that. I'm really looking forward to that fight. We got, my name is Deshaun saying Parkin is literally on everyone's parlay, not mine. Another Christian Rodriguez hype about to go down. We're going to find out, man. I think Parkin's going to win, but I'm not parlaying him at minus 275. And Haunter saying, you tripping, Unc. Mick Parkin can't KO a fly. Well, it hasn't looked like it so far. He knocked out the low-level regional scene competition that we saw, and the guy that gassed out in 90 seconds on Dana White's Contender Series. But, yeah, man, we're going to find out if he's got any KO power at this level. The Carrillo saying, by the way, trust your lady's doing much better, brother, and moving forward with healing. Yeah, she is, man. She's feeling a lot better. She's healing up in the face, and the surgeon is very very encouraged by the healing and hoping that this can be sealed up and fixed with a very, very small procedure. So hoping for the best. 57 of you guys hanging out live here on YouTube. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and please consider leaving me a comment down below and joining the Patreon in order to help support the work. Let's move on to this next fight, as we've got Sam the Future Patterson at minus 400 going up against Kiefer Crosbie plus 300 underdog. The fight doesn't go to decision here. Juice to the tits at minus 600. So Sam Patterson's 28 years old. He's 11-2 as a pro with a draw, and he's 1-1 in the UFC so far. Sam has won 7 of his last 8 fights. He earned his UFC contract by getting a second-round rear naked choke against Vinicius Sensi as a -210 favorite, and that was in September of 2022 on Dana White's Contender Series. Then Sam made his UFC debut 6 months later. He was knocked out in the first round by Yanal Ashmos. He was a -280 favorite in that fight, and he was knocked out with the first punch that landed. 6 months later, or so, Patterson decided to make the move up to welterweight after that KO loss. The fights that we were seeing him in before that were at lightweight. And 6 months later, he pulled out of a scheduled fight with Nasrat Haqparast, but then he got a first-round rear naked choke over Johan Leones. That was in January of 2024. Got him at +120 for that fight, so that was a nice call there. Sam is a tall and long for the division. He has excellent conditioning and a very dangerous ground game. He's definitely the more hyped prospect in this scheduled bout against Kiefer Crosbie. Kiefer's 34 years old, 10-4 as a pro, and he's 0-1 in the UFC so far. Kiefer's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He's definitely a guy who goes out there scrapping, as his last 5 fights have ended in the first round. So Kiefer's going out there looking to score, looking to get you out of there. And if he doesn't, he's probably going to be the one being put out of there. He got into the UFC off of a strength of a 2-fight winning streak he put together against Brian Loanajo by first-round ground and pound knockout. I couldn't see that fight. And then Alex Cowboy Oliveira by first-round KO. After that 2-fight winning streak in Centurion Fighting Championship and Rise FC, he got an opportunity to take a fight on short notice against Kevin Jousset. That was in Australia, which he jumped at that opportunity, of course. Kiefer was finished at the end of the first round by rear naked choke in that fight, and he's currently on a 10-month layoff. Sam Patterson is a heavy -400 favorite right now over Crosbie, the +300 underdog. So Patterson, 6 years younger, 8-inch reach advantage. He's the better finisher. Sam finds finishes. 10 of 11 wins come by way of finish, and he's got 6 submissions, and he's got 4 knockouts. Sam is 6-0 to the submission, and he's 4-2 to the KO, and Kiefer has been submitted in 2 of his 4 pro losses. I do think that is Sam's best path to victory here is via submission. The conditioning advantage, that's going to go to Sam Patterson. Sam has always been a guy with great pace, output, and volume. His UFC numbers don't show it, but that's only a 3-minute sample size that we have of Sam Patterson fights at this level so far. Sam is known for having an endless gas tank, and that could come into play against a front-loaded fighter like Crosbie. The grappling advantage also goes to Sam Patterson. Really solid ground game. His unusual size and length for the welterweight division allow him to have a very effective front choke attack. He's 6-0 to the sub, 3 coming by rear naked choke, 3 coming by guillotine choke. Sam also has nice Darce and anaconda choke, so he uses those long arms of his in creative ways to strangle the life out of you. Now, Kiefer Crosbie's got the power advantage. While this fight is on the feet, especially early, Kiefer is going to be live to land a knockout. He's 5-1 to the KO as a pro, and all 5 of those KO wins come in round 1. Kiefer throws punches and kicks with hate in his heart, and Patterson has a really bad habit of backing up in straight lines with his chin way up in the air, which leaves him vulnerable to the big overhand right and left. The exact same punches that Yanal Ashmos countered and dropped him with when Sam threw that naked low leg kick. Kiefer's best chance to win this fight is by catching Sam early with a big overhand while he's closing the distance. Now, this should be a fun fight for as long as it lasts. In Patterson and Crosbie's combined 28 pro fights, they have an average fight time of 6.55 minutes. 17 of their 21 combined wins come inside the distance. That's 81%. And 5 of their 6 losses come inside the distance. That's 83%. All 5 of Crosbie's career KO wins come by first-round knockout. And both of Patterson's career KO losses come in the first round by KO. So it would be stupid not to take a shot at Kiefer Crosbie to win by first round knockout at plus 800. I love the measurables advantages Sam has in this fight. 6 years younger, 8-inch reach advantage, top-notch conditioning, top-notch finishing instincts, especially on the mat with his wide variety of choke attacks. Kiefer is going to have to take risks to get into the pocket against Sam. If he can get there, Sam's tendency to have that tall man defense exiting the pocket with his chin in the air, Kiefer is going to be live to catch him. That's going to be a tricky task because Kiefer needs to get into the pocket, but not too far so he doesn't wind up in the clinch, allowing Sam to start grappling and looking for ways to wrap up his neck. I think Kiefer's best chance is to catch Sam with a big shot in the first or early in the second, but if he doesn't, I think Sam is going to pick him apart at range and eventually either find a big shot or get this fight to the mat, where we saw Kiefer look extremely vulnerable with his submission defense in the Karakhanyan fight and also the Jousset fight. This is a tough ask for Crosbie, but the door to finding a big shot early is definitely wide open. Outside of that, I see Sam winning the minutes as the fight goes on with his volume and distance management. And if he can find a knockdown or a takedown, I think the likelihood that he finds a submission is very high. I'll pick Sam to win this fight. I think he's a prospect that has a high ceiling in the welterweight division if his durability can hold up. And Kiefer Crosbie is going to test that durability early, and we'll find out if Sam's chin looks better up a weight class. But the pick for this fight is going to be Sam Patterson by second round submission. All right. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. D saying, very, very glad that your lady is doing well for sure. Appreciate that, D. She is really improving, and she's had a phenomenal attitude throughout all this and been very strong. So, shout out to my girlfriend. She's a fantastic lady. J Jack 77 saying, let's go Patterson. Round 1-2. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, dude. I'm thinking rounds 1 or 2, probably round 2, because Crosby's very dangerous early, and Sam's going to have to be just a little bit tentative early in the fight, just so he can find the timing of Kiefer and defensively be safe looking. He does not want to get caught by overhands early from Kiefer. And ring a ding ding, you guys from Fresno, the $15 donation. Much love from Fresno. Thank you so much, my man, saying keep the train rolling. Let's go, you guys. All right. An Aussie fight fan saying the French bloke had Crosby's back and had both hands on the mat, begging to be tapped out. Hard not to bet Patterson sub even at this price. Yeah, dude, he looks so bad. And not only that, it was the Karakhanyan fight too. You see, he was on Karakhanyan's back. He got sloppy and fell off, and just fell off right into an arm triangle, and it was over so quickly afterwards. So yeah, man, Patterson's sub is juice to the tits, but it's probably how it ends. My guy Jeff is in the room saying, "Oh, what's up, Jeff?" Deshaun saying, why did I think Patterson and Tom Nolan were the same person and both been slept first round on debuts? Nolan's Australian, Patterson is English, but they're both so tall and long for the division. So I could see how you can make that mistake there. So I like the fight to go over 4.5 minutes on Prize Picks. Patterson will keep his distance in the first round, especially after being KO'd by Yanal Ashmos. Yeah, if that's the case, then that probably hits. But if Patterson gets a takedown or if Crosbie does land a big shot, I could see this one finishing early. But yeah, 4.5 minutes, the bookies are onto it, and the value is going to be on the over. Tom Kane in the room saying, betting against Sam's long neck, heifer by sub. Patterson never subbed first time for everything. Kiefer by sub, huh? Very interesting. He does have a long ass neck. Like I made the joke last time out that even in his Tapology picture, Sam Patterson is keeping his chin too high. It's just way up there. So yeah, the neck is begging to be choked and that chin is begging to be hit. But I still think Sam, the future Patterson, is a phenomenal prospect that's going to get the job done here. We got David saying Weezy got a hell of a line. Now that's almost half of what it was when he bet it. Oh, really? The Crosbie plus 800. Where is that now, by the way? We've got Wow, plus 550, dude. I got that at plus 800. So yeah, I did get a much better price on that. Damn. But yeah, the bookies are onto it. But 550 and his money line is plus 300. So yeah, I guess everybody is on that. And my guy Jay Swift with the $2 donation saying, what does Uncle Weezy do outside of YT? Not that much, man. Honestly, not that much. It's a lot of work to maintain the database, to get the Patreon workout every week. So don't have much time for anything else, you man. Appreciate the $2 donation. Ring a ding ding. Jay Swift in the room with a picture of, looks like Ringo Starr there. Is that Ringo? Can't quite tell, but appreciate you, Jay. Thanks for checking in, man. I also like Sam under 114 points on Prize Picks as well. Yeah, 114 points is a lot of points to score for a fantasy score, so I don't think that's a bad look. Sam sub 2, maybe feel like it's going to be nice with under favored so heavily. Yeah, man. And yes, it is Ringo. Yeah, dude, I like that second round submission. That's my pick, dog father. I'm going second round sub here. And I agree with you, man. So I'm going to take let's see where that is on a book that, oh no, we don't have it yet. We don't have those lines yet, but oh wait, I was just there. God damn it. Sam Patterson round 2 sub plus 400. That line is pathetic. That line is pathetic. We got to see where that opens on other books. And nobody ever gets that yet, dude. That's definitely Ringo. It's hard to mistake that one, you guys. All right. Yeah, definitely got to wait for FanDuel and Bet Rivers and DraftKings on the props for sure. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. And it is going to be Muhammad Mokaev going up against Manel Kape. Mokaev, a slight minus 150 favorite. They got him about 60% implied to win this fight. Manel Kape, the underdog, at plus 130. And God damn it, excuse me, guys. There we go. We got fight doesn't go to decision here at plus 150, which I don't think is the worst look in the world. Muhammad's got 4 wins by submission out of 6 in the UFC, and Manel has finished half of his UFC wins as well. So both of these guys are pretty good finishers. But let's talk about the trends in this fight, as we've got this is a matchup between 2 top 10 flyweights, and whoever wins this fight could wind up fighting for the title soon. Mokaev is 24 years old, undefeated as a pro at 12 wins, 0 losses, and a no contest, and he's 6-0 in the UFC so far. This kid has no clue how to lose. He was undefeated as an amateur at 23-0. And now he's strung together 12 consecutive professional wins as well. Muhammad is a really good wrestler. He can push a relentless pace with that wrestling, and that pace wears on his opponents and it breaks them late in fights, as evidenced by Mokaev's 3 consecutive third-round submission finishes in a row that he got over Malcolm Gordon as a minus 1,400 favorite. Jafel Filio is a minus 1,000 favorite in March of 2023. In the Filio fight, Mokaev was put into a deep knee bar that he did not tap to. His knee was injured badly in that fight as a result of the knee bar, but Mokaev pushed through, never stopped fighting, and he found a rear naked choke at finish of his own with 28 seconds left in the third round. After the Filio fight, Mokaev took 7 months off to rehab the knee, and then he got a third-round arm triangle choke win over Tim Elliott as a minus 400 favorite. Mokaev is coming off a unanimous decision win over Alex Perez as a minus 350 favorite back in March. It was a lackluster performance against a tough opponent, but Mokaev found a way to win even though he was sick before the fight, and he didn't fight to his full potential there. Mokaev's going to be fighting Manel Kape. Manel is 30 years old. He's 19 wins and 6 losses as a pro, and he's 4-2 in the UFC so far. Manel's on a 4-fight winning streak at the moment. He lost his first 2 UFC fights, a close 29-28 unanimous decision to the current champion, Alexander Pantoja. He was a minus 110 pick'em in that fight, and he was a 29-28 split decision loss to Mateus Nicolau as a small minus 120 favorite. Since the Nicolau loss in March of 2021, Kape had 2 consecutive first-round knockouts over Odi Osborne as a minus 200 favorite and Zhalga Zhumagulov as a minus 300 favorite. After that, Manel had 2 consecutive unanimous decision wins over Dvorak. He was a minus 260 favorite in that fight. And then short notice replacement, Felipe Dos Santos, as a minus 400 favorite. Manel is currently on a 10-month layoff because he showed 2.5 pounds heavy for his scheduled rematch against Mateus Nicolau in January of 2024. And that fight was scrapped as a result. Then Kape pulled out of another Nicolau fight in April with an injury. Mokaev currently the minus 150 favorite in this fight. So Mokaev, 7 years younger, and he's the bigger dude, 2 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage. He's the better wrestler here. Mokaev does his best work on the mat. His striking is still a work in progress, but he can push a pace with his wrestling that very few opponents can handle for a full 15 minutes. Mokaev averages 5.8 takedowns per 15 minutes on 13.8 attempts. 74% of his fights take place in control time positions, and Mokaev is winning over 80% of those positions. Kape's fights have taken place at distance striking range around 87% of his total octagon time, so it's going to be up to Mokaev to force the grappling exchanges in this fight and take Manel to a place where he's less comfortable by pushing a wrestling heavy pace. Now, Manel Kape is the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. He's more experienced as a professional, having 12 more pro fights and 100 more minutes of professional cage time in 8 more years as a pro fighter. He's the better finisher, is Manel Kape, as this guy is a prolific moment winner. 16 of his 19 career wins are finishes. That's 84%. He's 5-2 to the submission as a pro, and he's 11 wins and 0 losses to the KO as a pro. Mokaev has a 67% finish rate, both as a professional and at the UFC level. He's only got a 50% finish rate at the UFC level. 67% both overall and at the UFC level. And both guys are finishers, but it's definitely Manel who's a lot more reliant on winning moments in order to have success in comparison to Mokaev. The striking advantage is in Manel's favor, in Kape's favor here, as he's so dangerous at distance striking range. He's fairly low volume, but he's precise and he's powerful. 11-0 to the KO, and 2-0 to the KO in the UFC. He's got a 5-0 knockdown ratio in the UFC, and he's landing a knockdown on 1.4% of the significant strikes that he lands. So while this fight is at distance striking range, I favor Manel to win the minutes and the moments. And the strength of schedule advantage leans Manel as well. He is fighting the UFC competition with the better win-loss ratios overall in comparison to Mokaev. But what I think is interesting is that it's Manel Kape does not have as good of wins as Muhammad Mokaev does. Manel Kape's 4 wins are against UFC opponents with combined records of 8 wins and 14 losses, while Mokaev's 6 wins are over guys that have a 500 record at 29-29. So to me, this comes down to the minute winning of Mokaev with his wrestling versus the moment winning of Kape with Kape's ability to be able to keep the fight standing and land the bigger shots at distance against Mokaev. Manel Kape's been lucky so far. He really hasn't fought anybody that's really forced a wrestling heavy pace. He's only seeing 3.9 takedown attempts per 15 minutes. So about, over a 15-minute fight, his opponents are averaging about 4 takedown attempts. But over a 15-minute time span, Muhammad Mokaev is attempting 13.8 takedowns per 15 minutes. So this is going to be a different paced fight for Manel. I think Manel will win the minutes and the moments at range. But what I don't think is going to happen is that he's going to be able to keep it at range long enough to find those moments that wind up winning him the rounds. I also think that Muhammad Mokaev's threat of the offensive wrestling is going to make it a lot more difficult for Manel to really let his hands go and try to land big shots with confidence. So I'm gonna side with the youth, the size, the busyness of Mokaev here. I think he's just at a different place in his career right now than Manel Kape. And I think that if he doesn't want to strike with Kape, he has the necessary tools to make this an extremely frustrating fight for Manel, to just absolutely blanket him, give him no chance to breathe, give him no room to move in that cage, and just to be on him like stink on shit, just takedown after takedown after takedown. And if he does that, I think that he could break Manel Kape in the third round like he has so many before him. That kind of pace is not something that you can stand up to for very long. And Muhammad, we know that this kid has no quit in him. And we know that even when he's tired, he can still wrestle his ass off. So my pick, I'm going to go with the younger guy, the bigger guy, the better wrestler, to push that pace and to frustrate Manel Kape and wind up winning this fight by decision. So Muhammad Mokaev by decision is the pick that I have in this fight. And, you know, I mean, we saw these guys get into a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a Donnybrook, I guess, today on Twitter. These guys got into a scrap, and I guess they got into another scrap over at the PI a couple of months ago. So definitely some bad blood in this fight. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. But Muhammad Mokaev by decision is the pick that I'm going with here. We got Brahma B in the room saying, oh, yes. What's up, Brahma? We got J-Jack saying, I can't believe this fight is this early. Yeah, it got moved from being like, I think, the feature prelim to being put on the early prelims. I don't know what the reason is for it, but it's interesting. Aussie saying Mokaev round 3 sub will be an autoplay for a while. Yeah, I think it should be. I think the way that he fights and the conditioning that he has and the pace that he can keep really kind of opens up third round submissions for him. Cap is a live dog for sure, says Real Fight Picks. Yeah, he is, because he can find moments against anybody. And if he does find moments in just 2 of the 3 rounds, it could mean that even though Mokaev might be getting 2 or 3 takedowns in the round and 4 minutes of control time, if he's not landing big shots, or if he's not active once he gets the fight to the ground and Kape lands big shots on the feet while it's standing, he could actually still win a decision here, even though he's losing the minutes, just by winning moments or having big shots land at some point in the fight. Brandon saying, I don't think I'm gonna have any action on this fight, but should be nice to not have scale be an issue for Kape, and should be a banger. Yeah, that's for sure. I don't know if I'm gonna have any money on this one either. But Mokaev by decision is something that I'm keeping my eye on. It feels like Mokaev is gonna have a huge performance, a lot of fantasy points. Yeah, he can definitely do that with a wrestling heavy game plan here. Hoy hoy indeed, says Brahma B. Ahoy hoy, right back at you, man. We got Brandon saying, also, fortunately for both of them, nothing really transpired on their scuffle at the fighter hotel. That's good. That's good, because we want them fighting on Saturday, not at the hotel on Wednesday. We got the general in here taking notes. We got J Jack saying, didn't Cap beat Ray Saruya? No, that he did not. He beat, you're thinking of Kai Asakura. Ray Saruya has never fought Manel Kape. That is for sure. Because I think Ray Saruya is still undefeated. We got Yita saying, moving right along. Let's go. Hard to cap. Yeah, I did say hard to cap. Hard to predict is the better way to put it. Kai Asakura says, J-Jack. Yes, sir. Dogfather saying, Mokaev round 3 decision. Yeah, I kind of like that as well, my man. I think he can get a submission at any point in the fight, because Mokaev is very slick, but I think it's more likely to come later on in the fight. So Mokaev round 3 decision, which is still not available on DraftKings or Bet Rivers, but we're gonna have to see where that comes. And ring a ding ding. Chris Montseville saying, let's get this money. Weezy got that dog in him. Appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much for the donation. Thanks for hanging out. Never seen you here before, but appreciate the donation to the show. Let's make some money this week, my man. And Teron Brown is in the room saying, what up, uncle? What's up, dude? And we got Nathan Robinson in the room saying, yo, Weezy, I just brought this up in the Discord. Pimblett finish only was minus 180. I just got minus 138 here in Australia on Sportsbet, which I believe is FanDuel. Yeah, I like that number, dude. Minus 138. I do think that Pimblett, being a very durable guy, is the more likely to finish this fight either by KO or by submission. So I don't mind laying a little bit of juice there at minus 138. I think that's a good look, Nathan. That's a good line. All right, you guys, let's move on to this next fight. It is going to be Oban Elliott, the plus 120 underdog, the fighting pride of Wales, going up against Preston Parsons, who's the fighting pride of Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, stand up. We got Elliott plus 120 underdog. Preston Parsons, about a 59% implied favorite here at minus 140. So let's talk about the trends on this fight here. Oban Elliott, still only 26 years old, you guys, 10-2 as a pro, and he's 1-0 in the UFC so far. Oban is currently on a 6-fight win streak. He's a well-rounded, all-action fighter trading out of Shore MMA in Wales. Oban put together some solid wins in Cage Warriors over recognizable names like Matthew Bonner and James Sheehan, and his pro wins come against a solid level of competition in guys like Michael Figlak and Madars the Latvian Express Flaminas. Oban earned his UFC contract by getting a majority decision win over Kape Brito as a plus 130 underdog on Dana White's Contender Series in a back-and-forth fight where Oban showed he could wrestle and win minutes as well as push through being put in really bad spots and never give up on himself. Next, Oban won his UFC debut over Val Woodburn by a 30-27 unanimous decision. He was a minus 310 favorite in that fight. Oban's going to have the Manchester crowd behind him as he squares off against Preston Pressure Parsons. Preston is 29 years old. He's 11 wins and 4 losses as a pro, and he's 2-2 in the UFC so far. Preston made his UFC debut on short notice against Daniel Rodriguez as a plus 280 underdog, and he was knocked out in the first round of that fight. After that, Preston got a dominant 30-27 unanimous decision win as a minus 150 favorite over Evan Elder, who was a short notice replacement in that fight for Lukasz. Next up, Preston lost a very close split decision to Trevin Giles as a minus 110 pick'em, and he's coming off a dominant 30-27 unanimous decision win over Matt Semmelsberger. He was a small minus 105 underdog in that fight. So Preston lives up to his nickname. He constantly comes forward, throwing bombs, mixing in his takedown attempts, and once he gets fights to the ground, he's extremely aggressive, looking to finish his fights by sub. This should be an all-action war between two exciting prospects. Preston's a small minus 140 favorite over Oban Elliott. So Oban is younger. He's going to be a little bit taller and have a little bit of a reach advantage. But Preston Parsons is going to be the more experienced fighter overall and at the UFC level. Preston is a much more dangerous finisher, having 9 wins by submission in his career out of 11. But we've seen these guys finished a lot. Preston Parsons has been finished in 3 of his 4 losses. Oban Elliott has been finished in both of his losses. So I think that potentially, either one of these guys could get a finish, as they've both been finished a lot, but I think that they're well matched. And my betting model actually likes the fight goes to decision at plus 105 as a trifecta bet, but it's only a 5-fight sample size. And outside of the UFC, didn't see a lot of their fights actually going to decision, only 4 out of 22. So maybe fight doesn't go to decision, even though the data doesn't like it. Might be a decent look because both of these guys have been finished a lot. But I think Oban might be the more likely guy to land the big shots on the feet, but I'm definitely not sure of that. But I do like Preston's wrestling and submission grappling games better. And I think that he's going to win the minutes of this fight that take place in control time positions. And luckily for Preston Parsons, only 40% of his UFC octagon time has been spent at distance striking range. But for Oban Elliott, it's only 27.3. So I don't know if Oban really has the skills to keep this standing and win the minutes and moments on the feet if he is the better striker, because I don't know if he's the better striker here yet. But I do know that Preston's wrestling has looked really good at the UFC level, that he's out-controlling his opponents 40.5% to 19%, that he's winning over 2/3 of the control time positions that his fights are in. and that I think he's probably the better wrestler, and I think he's the more opportunistic submission grappler, being 9-1 to the submission as a pro. So I'm going to lean to the Preston Parsons side here, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight actually by decision. I think Oban Elliott is a very scrappy dude, but Preston Parsons is going to look to finish fights, but I think Oban's going to stay out of it, gut through those bad spots. But I think Parsons is going to win enough minutes on the ground and come close on enough submissions to get his hand raised at the end here. We got Yita saying, like the video already, boys. Yeah, hit that like button if you could, and leave me a comment down below. I always appreciate that. Glenbot saying, what's up, gentlemen? He's got fight goes to decision in Oban Preston. And yeah, I mean, like, my model loves it. My model loves it. Says it's way underpriced for the 5-fight sample size that we have. And it's even underpriced according to the divisional benchmark, which is just slightly over 50% of fights do go to decision in the 170-pound weight class. So yeah, man, that's a good underpriced bet according to the numbers that I have. Aussie Fight Fan saying Preston has 10 sub attempts in his last 3 fights. The guy's very active, looking to finish fights. We got Aussie saying, what's up, Glenbot? Glenbot saying, what's up, Aussie? All right, we got a lot more work to do, so let's keep getting at it. You guys, Modestas Bukauskas, -151 going up against Marcin Prachnio, +131. Fight doesn't go to decision here, is sitting at +120 for this fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen. And let's first start talking about the trends. Bukauskas, 30 years old, 15-6 as a pro, 3-4 in the UFC. Former 2-time Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion, and this is his second stint in the UFC. Modestas was cut from the promotion after going 1-3 in his first 4 fights. He got a first-round win over Andreas Mihalidis, then lost 3 consecutive fights to Jimmy Crute, Mihail Oleksiejczuk, and Khalil Roundtree. In the Roundtree fight, Modestas suffered a gruesome leg break due to an oblique kick, and he had to take 14 months off to rehab the injury before going on a 2-fight winning streak in Cage Warriors over Lee Chadwick and Chuck Campbell. Modestas then won back-to-back fights in his return to the UFC over Tyson Pedro by unanimous decision as a +190 underdog, and Zach Pauga as a -200 favorite. Modestas is coming off a loss back in November by second-round knockout against Vitor Petrino as a +200 underdog. Modestas is going to be matched up against Marcin Prachnio, 36 years old, 17-7 as a pro, 4-5 in the UFC. But Marcin's won 4 of his last 6 fights, and he's coming off a 30-27 unanimous decision win over Devin Clark, and he was a +195 underdog in that fight, and he outstruck Devin 101-53, and he stuffed both of his takedown attempts. 7 months before the Clark win, Marcin was finished in the 3rd round by arm triangle against Vitor Petrino as a +220 underdog. Prachnio beat William Knight by 30-27 unanimous decision. Before that, he was a -120 favorite in that fight, the worst fight of all time, maybe. And then he lost a unanimous decision before that to Felipe Lins as a -125 favorite. Marcin's a high-volume kickboxer who prefers to stand and bang and should probably get the fight that he wants against a fellow kickboxer in Modestas. Bukauskas, currently a -170 favorite over Marcin. So Modestas is 5.5 years younger, and he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here. So I like the measurables for Modestas, and I think he's got the conditioning advantage here as he always shows up in shape. He's been scheduled to fight for 5 rounds 3 different times, and Marcin does tend to slow down later in fights, especially if you make him grapple. So if Modestas fights smart and mixes in the grappling early, he's got a great chance to win the minutes later in the fight due to his conditioning advantage. But Marcin Prachnio is more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's got 3 more pro fights, a little bit more time as a pro, and he's got 2 more fights at the UFC level, about a half hour more of octagon time. And I think he's the better striker here. The distance striking metrics that we have here really do bear that out. You see a lot of red on the screen for Bukauskas here, and you see a lot of green on the screen here for Prachnio. We got Marcin has a plus 2.7 positive, so he lands 2.7 more distance strikes per minute than he absorbs, while Modestas' distance striking differential is negative 0.8. Marcin's much more accurate at range at 52.5% compared to 39 for Modestas. He's more defensively responsible at 58.5% defense compared to only 51.5% defense for Bukauskas, and he lands more distance strikes per minute. Marcin lands 6.1. Modestas only lands 3.5. He attempts more distance strikes per minute, and he absorbs less distance strikes per minute. Marcin stays busier. He lands more, and Marcin has actually landed one UFC knockdown while Modestas has landed 0. Both guys have been dropped 4 times at the UFC level, so they're both chinny. I do think Marcin will win the minutes of this fight at range by being busier, more accurate, and more defensively responsible. And the strength of schedule metric advantage actually goes to Prachnio as well. He's fought the slightly more experienced guys overall, and his UFC wins over names like Khalil Roundtree, Ike Villanueva, William Knight, and Devin Clark rate better than Modestas' wins over Andreas Mihalidis, Tyson Pedro, who's now retired, and Zach Palga, who's probably cut from the organization. So it's an interesting kickboxer versus kickboxer matchup. Bukauskas has spent 82% of his total octagon time at striking range, and for Prachnio, it's over 77%. And these guys have gotten a grand total of 1 combined takedown on 6 total attempts in 16 combined UFC fights and over 155 minutes of combined octagon time. So I think it's safe to assume this fight probably stays standing, and the guy who does the better work at distance striking range is going to have the best chance to win. Bukauskas has the measurables advantages, being 5.5 years younger and having a 4-inch reach advantage. Modestas does have superior conditioning, in my opinion, as well, which could mean he's more likely to win the minutes of the fight as it gets into the later rounds. Prachnio has overall and UFC experience and strength of schedule advantages, in addition to having the much better distance striking metrics at the UFC level, which I think is very important in a matchup where I think the superior striker probably gets his hand raised. I like the way Marcin uses his wide variety of kick attacks to confuse his opponents. He stays busy, he's very accurate, and he stays busier and lands more in the clinch, but he does get hit hard a lot. Bukauskas has the reach advantage, the much better conditioning, and if he chooses to make Marcin wrestle early, he can use that conditioning advantage to win the later rounds if Marcin does slow down. I think this fight goes to decision, and it's very close. I feel like I can trust the durability of Bukauskas a little bit more than Prachnio, but both guys get finished a lot and have been dropped 4 times in the UFC, and 6 of their 9 combined UFC losses come by way of knockout. So I'm not confident enough to bet fight goes to decision due to how often both guys have been finished in their losses. However, I don't have much confidence in either guy's ability to get finishes at the UFC level, so I will pick whoever I think should win this fight to win by decision. And I'm going to lean to the superior distance striking metrics in every category that Prachnio has displayed at the UFC level, and he's done it against higher level competition. And I'm going to pick him to edge out the decision here. That being said, I do think Modestas is the guy more likely to finish this fight due to the perceived durability advantage I think he has and how badly Marcin reacts to getting hit. But I am going to pick Marcin Prachnio to win this fight by decision. All right. Yeah, that fight was so bad. I'm still bad. Leg kick city. I put Knight in my greasy 4-leg parlay that week, Chris, and it was the only leg that didn't cash, and I really held it against him. That's one of the worst performances I've ever seen. With the over-under favoring this fight to go the distance, is Marcin decision and auto with a Modestas round 3 sprinkle as a hedge? It's not a bad idea, but I'm going to be betting Marcin by decision. It's plus 310 on Rivers Sportsbook. I'm going to be playing that for a half a unit this week. I would bet just the Prachnio money line at plus money, but that would be a 1-unit bet, and I would rather have a half unit on this fight than a full unit because I don't want this fight deciding whether I win or lose. So, yeah, and Marcin's cardio is suspect. Yes. We got email Mailson saying, what's up? What's up, email? Good to see you hanging out in here. We got Tehran saying, man, that's messed up. Patty, a custom pair of shorts, but not Bobby Green. Yeah, I mean, like Patty's one of the golden boys of the organization. Marcin's striking ratio is so green because William Knight threw the fight against him and ate like 100 leg kicks. Yeah, but he still does throw a lot more volume than his opponents. Even if you throw out the Knight fight, you see that Marcin stays very busy at range. And my guy Matt is in the room. Oh, yes. Good luck this weekend, Weezy and Chad. Appreciate you, Matt. Thanks for stopping by, man. Always good to see you hanging out in here. The creator of your new Uncle Weezy intro song here. We got Ray Lukasz saying, Lithuanian man overpriced. I like them both. You make a strong case for Prachnio. Yeah, man, I'm going to be betting Prachnio by decision at plus 300 for sure. Brandon Olson saying, not really specific to this fight, but does the local fight times, UK judging, change your looks? Nah, it doesn't. These guys know that the fight's going to take place in the middle of the night, and they can just change up their schedules in order to do so. I think it would be just as bad for the UK and European-based fighters to be fighting at 4 o'clock in the morning as it will be for the other fighters from America that are making the long trip over there, either from Brazil, from America. It's just as hard. So, I mean, I think I'm not gonna look into that too much in terms of capping for the fights. William Knight was garbage. Yes, agreed. Thoughts on Bobby thinking people need to call him King? Imagine Dana calling him King. Yeah, he changed his name, so he wants people to call him King. I'm not gonna tell him no. I'm not gonna be the one to do that. Bobby's too fast, and he'd snap my head back with a straight left. That's all I need. So no thanks. I'll call him King, I guess. It doesn't bother me so much, but let's keep going, you guys. We got a lot of work to do here. Next fight, Jake Hadley, Caolan Loughran. Hadley plus 170, Caolan minus 200. Fight doesn't go to decision for this one at plus 170. Let me get a sip of water here for you guys and start reading some more. All right. Caolan Loughran was originally scheduled to fight a pure boxer in Ramon Tavares, but Ramon pulled out with an injury, and in steps Jake Hadley on just over 1 week's notice. Keelan's 28 years old. He's 9-1 as a pro, and he's 1-1 in the UFC. Caolan was the Cage Warriors bantamweight champion, winning it by second-round knockout over Dylan Hazan in May of 2023. He then got his UFC contract off the strength of that win and was scheduled to fight Giannis Gamuri in September of 2023, but the card had a last-minute shift, and instead Caolan had to fight a much more dangerous and experienced opponent in Taylor Lapalus, and Caolan lost that fight by a 29-28 unanimous decision as a plus 145 underdog. He was outstruck 76-44 at range, but Caolan got 2 takedowns in almost 6.5 minutes of control time to win one of the 3 rounds. After the Lapalus loss, Caolan got a 30-27 unanimous decision win over Ramon Tavares as a minus 375, or I'm sorry, it was over Angel Pacheco as a minus 375 favorite, where he outstruck Angel 97-80 at distance and got 3 of 4 takedown attempts in almost 5 minutes of control time. Keelan's taken on UFC flyweight Jake Hadley, who is almost 28 years old. Jake is 10-3 as a pro, and he's 2-3 in the UFC so far. Jake is currently on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost a 29-28 unanimous decision against Charles Johnson less than 3 months ago, and he was a minus 135 favorite in that fight. And before that, he lost a 30-27 unanimous decision against Cody Durden. Even though Hadley was so close to finishing Cody with an armbar, Cody still got 4 takedowns in about 7.5 minutes of control time, and he outstruck him 30-23 at distance. Before that, Jake was on a 2-fight winning streak, both by finish. Malcolm Gordon was a first-round knockout as a minus 480 favorite, and Carlos Candelario by second-round submission as a minus 270 favorite. Jake is up a weight class on short notice, but he's always had rough weight cuts down to 125, so it'll be interesting to see if Jake performs better without that brutal cut. Caolan the Don Loughran, currently a minus 200 favorite over White Kong Hadley, the plus 170 underdog. So with Caolan, you get pace, pressure, and volume. Caolan pushes a pace wherever the fight goes. On the feet at distance striking range, he attempts 18 distance strikes per minute and lands 7.7 of them, both way above average for the division. Caolan also attempts 7.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he gets 2.5 of them, both well above average for the division. In addition, he wins 96% of the control time positions that his fights have been in. He's efficient as well as active when it comes to making his opponent worry about defending the constant offense that's coming their way. And the wrestling and the minute winning and the grappling exchanges favors Loughran as well, as Caolan does an excellent job of mixing in the wrestling to win the minutes of his fights. He controls his opponents over 37% of his total octagon time, and he gets controlled only 1.5% of his time. So 96% of those control time positions are being won by Loughran, and Caolan has the necessary conditioning to push the pace wherever the fight goes. Now, Jake Hadley is going to be 1 inch taller. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw, so he's got all the measurables advantage. And in addition to that, he's got the experience advantages as well, with 4 more pro fights, about an hour more of pro cage time. And he's also got 3 more fights at the UFC level and almost a half hour more of octagon time. I think Jake's going to be the better submission grappler. Both of these guys are really solid grapplers for sure. But I would say that Jake is the guy more likely to win moments in the grappling exchanges, while Caolan is probably the better minute winner. Jake has never landed a takedown in the UFC. He's 0 for 14 on his attempts, and his opponents have out-controlled him on the mat 35% to 15%. So Jake loses 70% of the control time positions his fights are in, and that's because he's comfortable losing minutes trying to set up potential fight-ending submission attempts. Jake is attempting 1.4 submissions per 15 minutes, and he gets over a half of a reverse per 15 minutes. So he's definitely able to be offensive off of his back. And I think that Jake has also fought the better strength of schedule. Even though Jake has been fighting at flyweight and Caolan at bantamweight, Jake has fought a really solid level of competition at the UFC level due to him having more fights at this level. And I have to rate him as the fighter who's been tested at a higher level. So I'm very interested to see how Jake Hadley performs at 135. He's always had brutal weight cuts, and I've always felt as if he'd perform better up at 135. Jake is a UK fighter, so stepping in on 1 week's notice up a weight class shouldn't be the worst circumstances for him to take this fight at, especially considering that he's taller and longer than Caolan Loughran. This is going to be a really fun fight between 2 UK natives who are both only 27 years old. I see this as being the pace, pressure, output, and wrestling of Loughran versus the crisp boxing and moment-winning submission game of Jake Hadley. Jake is taller, longer, more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's the more aggressive moment winner in the grappling exchanges, and he's fought the better brand of competition as a professional. Caolan had a full training camp for this fight. He's the natural bantamweight, and his pace and volume in all aspects of the fight make it difficult to get your own offense off against him. I was so impressed with Loughran's poise in his UFC debut against Taylor Lapilus. He made his UFC debut in front of one of the loudest crowds I've ever seen in Paris against a way more experienced and well-tested opponent that was switched on fight week from Gamora to Lapilus. Even under those brutal circumstances, Caolan won a round of that fight. He pushed a pace for the whole fight and managed to find some offense at striking range, as well as get a couple of takedowns in over 6 minutes of control time. Loughran looks like a legit prospect who has confidence, conditioning, and a well-rounded skill set. The short notice of nature of this fight up a weight class for Hadley makes me hesitant to back him. I do think that Caolan will be able to get takedowns and rack up control time on the mat, maybe stay safe at distance striking range against Hadley, but Hadley's a tough opponent. But I don't see any gaping holes in his game that Hadley can exploit. In fact, Hadley's subpar takedown defense and willingness to play BJJ off his back, that is the weakness that gets attacked and exploited by Loughran here on the way to a decision victory. I might take a look at finish-only prop for Hadley here, or if I can get a fat number on his sub prop, that might tickle my fancy, but the pick is going to be Loughran by decision. This should be a really fun fight between 2 prospects that I think have bright futures in the organization here. But yeah, man, I'm gonna go with Keelan Loughran here to win by decision, but I think Hadley by submission could be something that I sprinkle. And right now, the finish only prop for Jake Hadley on Bet Online is plus 170. And I think that that's a pretty good look because I don't know if Keelan Loughran's going to be a finisher up at this level. And Jake Hadley's never been finished as a pro. So I think that's a pretty good look at about 38% implied probability, plus 170. Jake Hadley finish only, I think is a decent look this week, you guys. See what you guys are saying in the chat here. What are the odds we see one judge falling asleep on this car? That would be interesting to see how awake they are at 3, 4, 5 in the morning when these fights are going off. Cyber Power times 2 says Kong. Let's go. We've got White Kong, that man is talking about. Gwynbot saying on an island here, I took the under 2.5 at plus 188 in the Caolan. Yeah, I don't mind it at all, dude. As a matter of fact, because you watched Probability, but we were looking at that plus 170 fight doesn't go to decision, which I actually think it's plus 150 now. So that's unfortunate. It's not nearly as good, but I don't mind that number even at plus 150, I think. Or let's see, what did we get here? Oh, no, it is still plus 170 according to Bet Online. So, and then plus 190 for the under 2.5. Excuse me. That is what I think is the value plays here because I could see Jake getting a submission or I could see Keelan potentially getting a ground and pound knockout. Who's seen that Biden impeachment today? I did not see that. Oh, God, I wish. Well, I say I don't have time to keep up with politics. I hate politics, so don't have time for those idiots. Glenn Bott saying Keelan equals Vittori at 135. That's an interesting comparison there. MMA Clown Show is in the room saying, what's up, Weezy? Oh, what's up, MMA Clown Show? And then ring a ding ding. My guy Gogo Flamingo checking in saying, yo, Uncle Weez Dog, the algorithm has been hiding you. Glad you haven't been trumped. Allen Moneyline, Aspinall rounds 1, 2, 3, Edwards 4-5 decision, plus 300. I like it, man. I think Allen wins. I think Aspinall wins in round 1 or 2. And I like Edwards 4-5 decision there too as well. Let's see. Trump 2024 says not in the AM, bro. Is that the real Clown Show? Not sure, my man. But let's go on to the next fight, you guys. And it is going to be Molly Meatball McCann at minus 310 going up against Bruna Brasil at plus 250. I'm not going to read the whole breakdown for this fight. I like Molly McCann to win here. I think there's a decent chance she wins by knockout at plus 250. I also think that the Molly McCann decision is a decent look here. Let's get these stats up on the screen so I can take you through what I think are the important parts here. Just trying to cut down a little bit on the length of this show, you guys, with all this stuff that we have going on. So Molly McCann, more experienced overall with 6 more fights and about an hour more of cage time, more experienced at the UFC level, 9 more fights, about 90 more minutes of octagon time. I think Molly's going to be the better striker. She puts on a pace at range, stays really busy, lands a ton of strikes, has a dependable chin, and she flashes power and finishing ability. And I think that Molly's got the better strength of schedule by a long shot here. 11 of her 12 UFC fights take place up at flyweight. She's been in there against Taylor Santos, Jillian Robertson, Aaron Blanchfield, Luana Carolina, Ariane Lipsky. She's definitely fought the more experienced branded competition with the better win-loss ratios. Bruna, though, has all of the measurables advantages here. She's 3 years younger. She's 2 inches taller. She's got a 3-inch reach advantage. And I think, I'm not positive about this, but I think she might be the better grappler. I know we saw Molly McCann win by submission in her last fight, but make no mistake about it. When she loses fights, it's because she gets rinsed on the mat. Molly's been taken down in 6 different UFC fights, and her record in those fights is 1 win and 5 losses. That's her UFC record when she gets taken down. The only fight that she won where she was taken down was against Diana Belbita back in 2019. And Molly got 5 takedowns in that fight, and Deanna only got 1. So Molly has a below average grappling efficiency rating. Her opponents outcontrol her almost 2-1 or better than 2-1 on the mat. And she's winning less than 30% of the control time positions in her fights. But like I said, Taylor Santos, Erin Blanchfield, Jillian Robertson. She's fought some very dominant grapplers, and I don't think Bruna Brasil is on the level of the girls that have dominated Molly on the mat. So she may not have a grappling advantage. But I just wanted to bring it up that, you know, when Molly loses, it's because she's getting rinsed on the mat. Bruna might be the more likely fighter to win minutes with takedown attempts, top control, and clinch and ground strikes landed in this fight, but that's just, I don't know if that's the truth or not. So watching Molly McCann fight in England is always a treat, and this fight should be no different. I believe the UFC is setting her up for success, sending Bruna Brasil all the way to Manchester to fight Molly, and the bookies tend to agree, pricing her win probability at almost 80% here. Molly's more experienced overall and in the UFC. She's the more likely fighter to land a big shot and finish the fight on the feet. She's fought the much better brand of competition at the UFC level. Bruna's a patient and accurate counter striker when she throws. She fights smart. She has good kicks, and she does a decent job of mixing in the wrestling and being an efficient minute winner in the clinch and ground exchanges. I hate this matchup, though, for Bruna. She's too low volume. She doesn't have the power in her strikes to make Molly respect her. Molly's going to march forward, drowning Bruna in volume, and that pressure is going to limit Bruna's best weapon, which is her kicks. I think Bruna might be able to slow the fight down in the clinch and with her wrestling, but I don't see her being dependable enough there to outmuscle Molly at 115 pounds when Molly's been in there against much more powerful grapplers up a weight class. So Molly's the much better striker. Her defense is way better. Bruna's chinny, having been knocked out in 3 of her 4 pro losses, and Molly hits hard and is durable. I think the raucous home crowd fires up Molly and fuels her to a brutal KO victory, sparking another epic Molly meth ball celebration in front of her home fans. I'm going to go with Molly Meatball to win this one by second round KO. And we'll move on to this next fight after we see what you guys are saying in the chat. Is there value in the under 1.5 in the Molly fight? Well, let's see what the betting model says for the under 1.5 rounds. Plus 210. We get a little bit of value. It's fairly priced, if not just a little bit underpriced, as Molly McCann. She's had 5 of her 12 UFC fights finish under 1.5 rounds. So that's almost 50%. But Bruna Brasil has never had a fight finish in the first minute or round and a half. But a 33% combined total there. We're only paying 32% on the line. So I think there's a little bit of value there at plus 210. We got Molly was looking fit on Embedded. That's good. She's working. She's now at the right weight class for her. So she's going to look a lot better down here at 115. Yeah, it looks like she's been putting in the work. Mark's got Molly round 3. We got Curtis Clark in the room saying what's popping. And we got Gogo saying 3 of 4 of Bruna Brasil's losses have come by KO. You know Dana wants her to skull howl her head on top, on top of the cage. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen there. I do think she gets the KO. But we still got to, KOs just don't happen a lot in this division. So I think it's a risky play to make at only plus 250 because you can see here this number, 12.14% of women's strawweight fights end in knockout. Only 12%, less than 1 in 8. So it's not exactly the best bet to make. And you're only getting plus 250 here. But 3 of their 9 combined UFC fights, when we talk about McCann's 7 wins at the UFC level and Bruna's 2 losses, it does show about a 25, like it should be priced about plus 300 and we're getting plus 250. So yeah, it's not the best price, but it's the best price available, unfortunately. We got Chris saying, I can't unsee that crucifix. That was hard to watch. She was a dead meatball, but does look much better. Yeah. I mean, Bruna and Brasil is not Aaron Blanchfield. So that's what we have to really keep in mind. But let's move on to the next fight. I'll skip through this one really quickly. Nathaniel Wood's a giant favorite right now over Daniel Pineda. We got minus 410 for Wood, plus 310 for Pineda. Fight doesn't go to decision here is minus 220. I think Pineda can win in rounds 1 or 2. And I think if he doesn't, he's going to slow down in round 2 and really slow down in round 3. And we probably see Nathaniel Wood get a round 2 or a round 3 finish. Right now, you can get Pineda at plus 650 to win in rounds 1 or 2. And you could get Nathaniel Wood in rounds 1 or 2 at plus 133. And I think that's not a bad way to play it. Or I'm sorry, I would want Wood rounds 2, 3, plus 440 and plus 650. So I don't know what that exactly comes out to. And it probably something like plus 200 if you were to do round 2 or round 3. But yeah, Wood's going to be the better boxer here. If this fight gets to the ground, Daniel Pineda is always live for a submission as he's 19 wins to the sub as a pro and 9 KOs. He has a 100% finish rate over a 28 fight or win sample size here. My betting model actually likes the over 1.5 rounds here at minus 160. That's a trifecta bet. It's underpriced according to all 3 benchmarks that we use. And I don't mind it because 9 of 10 Nathaniel Wood fights in the UFC have went over 1.5 rounds, and all 10 of his UFC fights have went to round 2. And even for Pineda, a guy known for a 100% finish rate and who's been finishing a ton of losses as well, even 5 of his 8 UFC fights have went over 1.5 rounds. So my model sees a lot of value in that minus 160 over 1.5 rounds here. But like I say, I mean, I think Wood could win a decision here. My model also likes Wood by decision at plus 215. That's a massive trifecta bet with an 11-fight sample size of Wood UFC wins and Pineda UFC losses. So Wood by decision plus 215, Wood over 1 or the over 1.5 rounds at minus 160. And I think that if we do get an early finish, it probably comes on the Pineda side with either calf kicks or a submission, or Pineda gasses out after round 1, and we see Wood get a second or a third round finish with some precise strikes as Pineda slows down. But yeah, I mean, I think the over 1.5 is good. I think if it does go the full 15, that there's a very high probability that Wood wins rounds 2 and 3. So those are the ways I like playing this fight. But I'm going to call I'm just gonna pick what my betting model tells me is the most likely result of this fight, and I'm gonna pick Nathaniel Wood to win by decision. Nathaniel Wood by decision is the pick. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Wood 2-3. I agree with you, J Jack. I like that. Wood does have that dog in him for sure. We got Antonio in the room saying, "Oi, what's up to my favorite uncle? What's up, Antonio? Good to have you hanging out in here." Aussie Fight Fan saying, "For my Australian peeps at Ladbrokes, you can get same game parlay Pineda, round 1 sub and 1+ takedowns at 45-1. That is that's not a bad look at all. I like that. That would be sweet there. Very good call. Like that one. All right, you guys, let's move on to the next fight, as it is going to be Arnold Allen versus Giga Chikadze. Giga has been marked as questionable all week on DraftKings. So this is going to be the last fight that I try to research this week. I have no interest in betting this fight, and I'll tell you why. Giga Chikadze has not been active lately. We see that Giga has not fought in over 10 months, and he lost to Calvin Kattar by unanimous decision. He got a win over Caceres by unanimous decision. And before that, he was hot, getting knockout wins over Cub Swanson and Edson Barbosa in a main event. But Giga's, pushing 36 years old right now. He's an excellent kickboxer, but he doesn't have the best grappling game. I'm worried about him potentially getting taken down and subbed by Arnold Allen. And I took a quarter unit shot on Arnold Allen to win by submission at plus 900. Arnold Allen does have 4 wins by submission in his career. And the only time Giga's been finished in his career, it was by submission. And that was on Dana White's Contender Series by Austin Springer. So I kind of feel like this line might be a little bit wide for Allen because Arnold Allen only gets 1 takedown per 15 minutes and he only attempts 2. So if you're telling me I can get Giga Chikadze in a distance striking match against Arnold Allen at plus 195, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Look, Arnold Allen lands a knockdown on 0.5% of the distance strikes that he lands. Giga Chikadze gets one on 1.2%. I mean, Allen 3 knockdowns, 4-0 allowed, but Giga's got a 6-1 knockdown ratio, and he lands knockdowns on about, he's about twice as likely to land a knockdown on a significant strike as Arnold Allen is. Add in the fact that he's 4 inches taller and he has a 4-inch reach advantage, and that he's got a high level kickboxing background. If Arnold doesn't mix in the grappling here, and if Giga Chikadze isn't washed or injured at this point in his career, I think that this fight can play out extremely close if these guys just strike at range for 3 rounds. I trust Giga to land with more power. I trust Giga to do a better job managing distance with his kicks. And if you look at the distance striking numbers for these guys, Giga's just a tick better everywhere. He lands just a little bit more strikes with a little bit more accuracy. He's a little bit more powerful. He's a couple notches more defensively responsible. And Arnold is a guy who spends about 70% of his UFC cage time at distance striking range. So in order for him to look minus 230 against a pure kickboxer in Chikadze, I've got to kind of have the feeling that he's going to have some grappling success here, but I'm not entirely sure that he's going to do that. So Arnold, the hometown fighter, the younger guy, but I think Giga can win the minutes of the striking here, and he's taller and he's much longer. So I think that this is, I don't like this line at minus 230, but I'm hesitant to bet Giga because I feel like Giga, having not fought in over 10 months at this late stage of his career, could be signs that there are injuries, could be signs that he's just kind of slowing down a little bit, that he's not going to be fighting as often, and that he's not as dangerous as he was about a year and a half, 2 years ago when he was knocking out Barbosa and Swanson and then being put in a main event against Calvin Kattar. So, just for the hell of it, I'll pick Giga Chikadze to win this fight by decision. I think he can maybe outwork Arnold Allen at distance, but I get why Arnold is the favorite here. He's much younger. He's looked really good on the feet. He's had some really tough competition, went 5 rounds with Max Holloway and didn't get his ass kicked. So I really do think that Arnold Allen is the rightful favorite here. But I think the stylistic components of this matchup, that he could be finding it hard to close the distance against Giga in the big cage. And if Giga touches his liver, then all bets are off for Arnold Allen. So, yeah, man, I think Chikadze isn't a bad look. He's not a bad underdog this week. I'll pick him to win by decision here. Am I crazy? Have I lost it, you guys? We got J-Jack saying, yeah, man, Tucker Lutz was minus 300 against Pineda. Not sure how they got to that number, but yeah, you won't see Tucker Lutz minus 300 against anybody in the UFC again. And ring a ding, you guys. Go Flamingo with the $10 donation. Saying $50 via PayPal, enough to get a Ask Weezy for UFC 305. Hoping to be there in person. Gotta go, but I am there in spirit. The Flamingo remains your loyal spirit animal. Yes, it would. $50, for one show. I don't make $50 on my channel all month without donations. So, yeah, I would do that for UFC 305, man. I'm done with content for this week outside of the Greasy 4-leg parlay on Friday, and I'm going to be appearing on Brady's best bet on Saturday. But yeah, that would be something that I would absolutely do for you guys. Give you an Ask Weezy so that you could ask plenty of questions about all the bets you're considering for UFC 305. How's Giga's chin to you? It's either Allen KO or Giga decision. Well, Giga's never been dropped, or I mean, he's been dropped one time in the UFC, but he's never been knocked out as a professional. So I think he's got a very good chin. And Allen is a guy who, he's not a big time power puncher, in my opinion. Obviously, he smoked Dan Hooker and he got a win by KO over Cater, but that was a knee injury. It wasn't a real knockout. So I kind of tend to think that Giga's chin should hold up fine in this fight. And if I were to pick an over-under on this one, which one would I would probably lean over, but I think it's probably juiced, right? Yeah, dude, I mean, my model says there's still a little bit of value at minus 240 for the over 2.5 and minus 210 for the fight goes to decision here. So I would lean over, but I am not laying minus 210 or minus 240 on these guys, on these guys going the full 15. It's just too much. But let's move on to this next fight, you guys, as we've got the main card now. Christian Leroy Duncan, minus 141. Gregory Rodriguez, plus 121. Fight doesn't go to decision for this one, is juiced up at minus 220, and I agree with that. Both of these guys have got a ton of power. So let's first start talking about Duncan and the trends here after I get a drink of water. This one's going to be a banger. Christian Leroy Duncan's a blue chip prospect, 29 years old, 10-1 as a pro, 3-1 in the UFC so far. Former Cage Warriors middleweight champion, made his UFC debut back in March of 2023. He won a bunch of fights. He lost to Petrosian as a minus 150 favorite, and then won the fights against Tialulan and Ribeiro and Todorovic, all finished wins, but Todorovic was an injury, but the Tialulan and Ribeiro wins were absolutely finishes. Duncan's going to be fighting Gregory Rodriguez. 32 years old is Gregory, 15-5 as a pro, an impressive UFC record of 6-2. Potent finisher, power in his hands, nasty BJJ game. So Christian Leroy Duncan, 3.5 years younger, 4-inch reach advantage. He's a switch stance fighter versus an orthodox fighter. He's very, very durable, having never been finished as a pro or amateur. That's a combined 34 fights between amateur and pros where Christian Leroy Duncan's never been finished. And the striking advantage goes to Duncan. He's a very unique and difficult striker to deal with. He constantly switches stances. He throws kicks with both legs from both stances. He mixes up his targets and techniques as he has such a wide variety of options to throw at you. He's got an impressive positive 1.6 distance striking differential, a way above average 57.4% distance striking accuracy, and he absolutely flashes power as well, and he has a dependable chin. He uses his length well, and it's hard to get his rhythm and timing because of the stance switching and the variety of weapons that he uses. Gregory Rodriguez is 1 inch taller. He's more experienced overall with 9 more fights and almost an hour more of cage time as a pro. He's got 4 more fights at the UFC level and a half hour more of octagon time. I think he's got the power advantage, does Gregory. He's finished 5 of his 6 UFC wins by way of knockout. He's landing a knockdown on 1% of the significant strikes that he lands, and he's shown more power at this level against tougher competition over a longer timeline. Both guys hit hard, but I think Gregory's power can be counted on a little bit more. The grappling advantage, that's Rodriguez, a BJJ world champion at the purple belt level, 3-0 to the submission as a pro. He gets 2.5 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's shown 100% takedown defense on 6 attempts against at the UFC level. Out-controlled his opponents, 19.5% to 5.5%, winning almost 80% of the control time positions in his fights. I feel as if Gregory has the better chance to win minutes and moments with his grappling in this matchup. And the strength of schedule advantage goes to Rodriguez. He's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced brand of competition with the better win-loss records. In particular, Gregory's UFC wins rate better than CLD's, as the combined records of the 6 guys Gregory Rodriguez has beaten, 32 wins, 27 losses, while if you add up the records of the guys that Christian Leroy Duncan has beaten, it's 5 wins and 11 losses. So what an incredible fight this is. Duncan is a phenomenal prospect, and he's getting the step up in competition that he deserves. This fight being in the big cage favors Duncan, in my opinion, because he's going to have more room to move at distance striking range, switch stances, manage distance, use his footwork. But I don't think Christian will be out of his depth anywhere in this fight. Duncan's 3.5 years younger. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's more durable, and he has the slicker and more diverse striking arsenal. I also think Christian can win minutes in the clinch in this fight, as well as potentially win minutes on the mat. You can't teach size, length, and athletic ability, and CLD, he's got all 3 of those. Now, Gregory Rodriguez is going to be taller. He's going to be more experienced overall and in the UFC. He's the better submission grappler. He's fought the much better brand of competition, and he has a ton of power on the feet and with his ground and pound. And that's proven by the fact that Gregory has finished 5 of his 6 UFC wins by way of knockout. I think Gregory needs to pressure on the feet and not give Duncan space to operate and get his kicks off. Gregory has serious power, and if he can get into the pocket, he's just as likely, if not more so, to land the bigger shots here and do more damage. I do think that I'm going to lean to the side of the hometown fighter in Duncan, though. I love his footwork and movement at range. He has really good power and finishing instincts of his own. His clinch game is seriously underrated, in my opinion, as is his ground game. His natural size and athletic ability is a cheat code, and he's only 29 years old and improving with every fight. We saw him really take the next step, showing the ability to win minutes in the clinch, get a big takedown, advance to a dominant position, and finish with relentless ground and pound versus Ribeiro the last time out. I think Christian Leroy Duncan is going to take his time, pick Gregory apart at range and in the clinch, and finish in the second round by KO. Duncan has such a high ceiling, and getting a win over a quality opponent like Rodriguez would perhaps get him ranked in the top 15, perhaps before 2024 is over. So I'm going to pick Christian Leroy Duncan to win this fight by second round knockout. And also, I would like to wish Christian Leroy Duncan for one more minute, at least in Chicago. It's Christian Leroy Duncan's birthday, July 24th, 1995. This young man turned 29 years of age today. Big up yourself, Christian Leroy Duncan, and happy birthday to you. Good luck this week in the cage. So we've got and Brandon likes the over in the previous fight as well. I like it too. I just hate laying minus 200. I would have to find something to parlay that with, I think. Glenbot is saying my favorite under here. 80.5% of all CLD and RoboCop fights have finished under 2.5 rounds, and I personally like fight ends in round 2. I hear you, man. I feel like the same thing there. I think Christian might find a little bit of time to get his rhythm, to get the timing, and then he's going to find some big shots and potentially get him out of there. We got Cody's calls in the room saying, my man, how you been? Love you. Good to see you, Cody. Thanks for hanging out with us in here. We got Gregory gets hit against less technical guys. Yeah, that is a problem because the striking defense at 54% is going to be a problem, but Christian Leroy Duncan's is 53%, so he's going to have to clean that up as well. And ring a ding ding, you guys. Rouse us with the $10 donation. I'll pitch in a little for that Ask Weezy content in the future, Unc. I missed that show, but glad we got probability back and we're firing on all cylinders. Probability has been a key part of me making better bets over these last 10 to 12 weeks and that recent winning streak that I've been on. Nice little upward trend, and it has to do with putting in the work to find the spots in that show. It really helps me out. And I'm glad that the people on the Patreon like that show as well. $25 a month. The probability tier on the Patreon is a fantastic tool to help you make better long-term gambling decisions with all the analytics, statistics, and benchmarks that you'll have access to when you sign up. My guy Rousus wants to Ask Weezy soon. Maybe that's something I can bring back for free on YouTube and get some support financially, like you guys have been supporting the show today, and continue to make balls deep breakdowns and probability subscriber-only content for the Patreon people. I think that's a good way to go forward. We got Antonio saying, I don't know, CLD feels so untrustworthy to me at any price. After that Petrosian fight, yeah, but don't forget, Petrosian beat Gregory Rodriguez as well. And the MMA Bill Counter is in the room saying, Weezy, oh, what is up, MMA Bill Counter? Good to see you hanging out in here. All right, let's move on to this next fight. We got 3 left. We got King Green going up against Patty the Batty Pimblett. This fight is a pick'em, -110 apiece. Fight doesn't go to decision, +115 for this fight. So let's talk about the trends here. King Green, 37 years old, 32 wins, 15 losses, 1 draw, 1 no contest as a pro. This is going to be his 50th professional fight. And Bobby Green is 13 wins, 10 losses, 1 draw, and 1 no contest in the UFC since the year 2013. Bobby is a very slick and accurate boxer who's been performing at a high level for over a decade in the UFC. Bobby's won 3 of his last 4 fights, and he's coming off a dominant unanimous decision win over Jim fucking Miller at UFC 300. He was a -190 favorite, and he outstruck Miller 186-57, and he 10-8'd him in the 3rd round. Before the Miller fight, Green was brutally KO'd in the first round by Jalen Turner. He was a +170 underdog in that fight. And before the Turner loss, Green was on a 2-fight winning streak with a first-round knockout win over Grant Dawson as a +350 underdog and a 3rd-round arm triangle choke win over the washed Tony Ferguson as a -375 favorite. Green's going to be facing everybody's favorite scouser, Patty the Batty Pimblett. Patty is 29 years old. He's 21-3 as a professional, and he's 5-0 in the UFC so far. Patty's on a 7-fight winning streak at the moment, and he's coming off consecutive unanimous decision wins over Jared Gordon as a -270 favorite, a fight which he clearly lost, but corrupt judges handed him an undeserved win, and he also got a win over the rotting corpse of Tony Ferguson last time out. Patty's a wild man. He throws a ton of volume on the feet, he eats punches with his face, and he has a really dangerous ground game and an ability to get to his opponent's back and finish fights with the rear naked choke. Patty is one of the UFC's golden boys, and he's fighting at home in front of a very friendly crowd, so I look for him to come out hot, looking to play to the crowd. This is a young prospect with a huge fan base, fighting a grizzled veteran with a journeyman's record. We know the UFC is setting up a win for Patty, but Bobby Green might have plans of playing the spoiler here. Patty Pimblett right at a pick'em right now versus Bobby Green. So on the King Green side, pro experience advantage, 25 more pro fights, 275 more minutes of pro cage time, 5 more years as a professional fighter. And he's also got the UFC experience advantage with 20 more UFC fights and almost 4 more hours of total octagon time. I think Bobby's going to be the better striker here. He's a very slick boxer. He keeps his hands low. He moves his head really well. He rolls with punches very well. He throws straight punches with very little windup, and his ability to slip and rip in the pocket makes him a very frustrating opponent to deal with. He's got a positive 2.7 distance striking differential over a 215-minute sample size of distance striking metrics. He lands 7 distance strikes per minute and only absorbs 4.4. He's got almost 50% accuracy and 64% distance striking defense. Those are both well above average for the division, and Bobby prefers to stand and bang, and while he does, he's very good at landing shots and not getting hit. Now, the strength of schedule advantage also goes to Green, as he's fought and beaten the more experienced brand of UFC competition with the better win-loss ratios, and it isn't even close. This is going to be a very tough test for Paddy Pimblett. But Paddy's 8.5 years younger than Bobby Green. That's statistically significant. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage over Bobby Green. He's got the finishing ability. That kind of leans in his favor here. Is he's got a 60% finish rate in the UFC, while Green's is a little bit below 40%. Paddy's never been knocked out as a pro, while Bobby has been knocked out 4 different times in the UFC. So not only would I rate Paddy as the more explosive finisher, but I also think he's the more durable guy who's less likely to get finished here. Paddy's 9 wins and 1 losses to the submission as a pro, and he's 6-0 to the KO. I'm going to definitely rate Paddy as the more explosive finisher, and he's the better grappler in my opinion. He's a BJJ black belt who has really slick back takes, active ground and pound, and the ability to finish fights with his submissions. Paddy isn't the highest percentage wrestler offensively or defensively, but he's really slick on the ground, and his ability to get back up when taken down, reverse position on the mat, and advance to dominant positions makes him a very dangerous guy to grapple with. If Green fights smart, he's going to keep this at range where he can win the minutes, because I rate Paddy's ability to win minutes and moments in the grappling exchanges as better than King Green's. So I don't think I want to have anything to do with this fight from a gambling perspective. The line is close, as it should be. These guys are well matched. And even if you think Green is the way better fighter, you have to keep it in the back of your head what happened with the Pimblett-Gordon decision and know how desperate the UFC is to portray this kid as a star. If Green doesn't finish this fight and it goes to the judges in Manchester, you have to believe Green is going to get a jolly good rogering on the scorecards, just like Jared Gordon did. King Green is the way more experienced fighter overall and in the UFC. He's fought the much better brand of competition at the UFC level, and he's the slicker striker at range who's more accurate, and he's a lot more defensively responsible than Paddy Pimblett. He's got a 64% distance striking defense, Bobby Green does, compared to the piss-poor defense of Pimblett that sits at 44.7% at distance striking range. Paddy's the hometown fighter that the UFC wants to win. 8.5 years younger. 2-inch reach advantage, the more explosive and opportunistic finisher with the better minute and moment winning skills in the grappling exchanges. I do think this fight goes to the judges. I don't think Paddy is knocking Green out or submitting him, and I think Green is more of a volume striker than a one-punch KO guy. So it's going to come down to which fighter successfully implements their game plan. I think Paddy needs takedowns to win this fight because he's just too hittable at range. Green is too fast and too elusive for him. This is in the big cage, so it's going to be harder for Paddy to back Green up and slow down his output. That being said, this is in London. The crowd's going to be going nuts every time Paddy even comes close to landing, and the judges in the organization as a whole are corrupt as fuck. I think Green wins this fight, and Paddy gets the nod. So I'm going to pick Paddy Pimblett to win this one by a close decision here, and see that he gets the nod. So Paddy Pimblett, by decision, is the pick for this fight. Let's see what you guys are saying. Yeah, we got rotting corpse, cold blood. Yeah, I mean, it is the rotting corpse of Tony Ferguson, though. I mean, he's done. What is he on, an 8-fight losing streak or some shit? It's got to stop, you guys. They can't let him back in there. King Green was in rare form during his media day interview. He has that MJ mentality, and Paddy been talking hella shit. Yeah, that's going to be interesting, man, to see how that one plays out. Bobby Green's always fun to listen to on the mic, as is Paddy Pimblett. You just got to have the subtitles because I don't speak whatever language it is that Paddy speaks. But yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of fun. Question, if I sub to the Patreon, would it be okay if I used it for my YouTube videos? It's legit the best Excel spreadsheet, but I wanted your permission. Yeah, if you did, I don't mind you showing it. Yeah, because it's hard to read all that stuff off of the screen when you're watching it on YouTube. But if it would help you out, do better content, Cody, and it would help me get one more subscriber to the Patreon, Cody, I think we could help each other out, man, and I appreciate you asking. Brandon Olson saying, yeah, the shit talking tomorrow for the press conference will be interesting. James saying, I agree. I'm just going to drink a beer and watch the fireworks. Now I kind of feel the same way. I feel like I don't have to have money on this fight. There's nothing really jumping out at me saying that you've got to bet this. And I think that there could be a lot of variance with how this fight plays out. And I think I'd be a lot happier if I had no money on it. Patty's going to get a huge ovation. There's no question about that. Proper rogering for Lou. Yes, sir. A good rogering is what we're going to talk about while we're in the UK. Remember, Weezy, the UFC has gotten their guys to win when they want. Patty, O'Malley, Grasso. I agree with you, man. Absolutely. Tony Ferguson, Nick Diaz. That is coming. No, it's not. Nick Diaz is fighting Vicente Luque, and Tony Ferguson is fighting Michael Chiesa. They're going to be walking into those cages with the walkers. It's going to be crazy. Diaz, yes. You're the GOAT, man. Appreciate you, Cody. Thanks, man. Sign up for the Patreon. It'd be great to have one more member on there. In Manchester, which is 60 miles from Liverpool, so not far at all from Liverpool. It's a home fight for Paddy Pimblett. I think Nick Diaz's fight may have gotten canceled, but zero interest regardless. I'm fine if it got canceled. Luque Diaz. Oh, okay, it's off. All right, good. Because I actually did that. I sent that fight out to my Patreon members. I put that on the spreadsheet, so I'm not surprised it got canceled though. Neither one of those guys, Luque or Diaz, they should not be in the cage in the UFC right now. All right, but let's move on to the next fight here, as we've got Tom Aspinall going up against Curtis Blades. Aspinall almost a minus 400 favorite here. Blades plus 308. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Is juiced to the tits at minus 1,000 or a 91% implied probability. So yeah, just crazy stuff here. But let's talk about the trends after I get a sip of water. So this co-main event is a 5-round fight for the UFC Interim Heavyweight Championship. Tom Aspinall, 31 years old, 14-3 as a pro, and he's 7-1 in the UFC so far. Tom is the UFC Interim Heavyweight Champion. He won that belt against Sergey Pavlovich back in November by first-round knockout as a minus 115 pick'em. 4 months before the Pavlovich fight, Tom finished Marcin Tybura in the first round by KO as a minus 475 favorite. And Tom's only UFC loss came against Curtis Blades back in July 2023 as a result of him tearing the ACL in his right knee after landing a leg kick and possibly taking a bad step. So Tom took 1 year off to have surgery and rehab the knee injury, which had apparently been bothering him for his entire professional career up to that point. And he's looked phenomenal since returning from that injury. Tom obviously wants to fight John Jones for the actual UFC heavyweight championship, but due to Jones still being injured, he's going to be given the chance to avenge his only UFC loss against Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades, 33 years old, 18-4 with a no contest as a pro, and he's 13-4 with a no contest in the UFC. Curtis is a wrestle boxer who has solid stand-up, relentless wrestling, and suffocating top control and ground and pound. Curtis has won 4 of his last 5 fights, and he's coming off a second-round knockout win over Jailton Almeida. He was a plus 115 underdog in that fight at UFC 299. Curtis was out-grappled in the first round, but caught Jailton with Travis Brown-style elbows while he was in on a single leg, and he finished the fight almost in the exact same way that he finished Cody East back in 2016. So before that, Curtis was knocked out in the first round by Sergey Pavlovich. He was at minus 165 favorite there and let down the juiced bettors. And that was a bad loss as Curtis decided not to wrestle for some reason, and it obviously cost him dearly. I hate it when wrestlers fall in love with their hands. And Curtis might have fallen in love with the box, as Renato Moicano once famously said. That loss to Pavlovich snapped a 3-fight winning streak for Blades. He got the injury win over Aspinall as a plus 120 underdog, a second-round knockout win over Chris Daukaus as a minus 510 favorite, and a unanimous decision win over Jairzinho Rozenstruik as a -350 favorite. This is a compelling heavyweight fight between two really dangerous guys. Curtis was only a small +120 underdog the first time these guys fought back in 2022, but this time the current UFC interim heavyweight champion is a -350 favorite over Blades, who's the +285 underdog. So Tom Aspinall is bigger than this dude. He's 1 inch taller. He's 2 years younger, and he's got the finishing ability here with 100% finish rate in his 14 pro wins. He's got 3 submissions, 11 knockouts. He's got fast hands, crisp boxing, and a ton of power on the feet, and he's a BJJ black belt with an opportunistic submission game. He's got the striking advantage here. Tom's UFC distance striking metrics over an 8-fight and 17-minute sample size are incredible. He's got a positive 2.6 distance striking differential. He's got mind-boggling 62% accuracy and 66.7% defense. He lands 6.2 distance strikes per minute. He absorbs only 3.6. His knockdown ratio is 4-0, and he's landed a knockdown on 3% of the significant strikes that he lands. Tom has 5 wins and 1 loss to the knockout in the UFC, and he's 11-1 to the KO as a pro, and he wasn't actually knocked out. He just hurt his knee. So Tom's hands are extremely fast, accurate, and powerful, and he's outlanded his opponents at distance in every UFC fight except for the Blades fight, which only lasted for 15 seconds. The submission grappling, that's Aspinall. He's a BJJ black belt. He's 3-1 to the sub as a pro, and he's finished 2 of his 7 UFC wins by way of submission, while Blades is the more active wrestler who wins more minutes in control time. It's Tom who will be more likely to finish the fight by submission when it's on the mat. Not only has Curtis Blades never won a professional fight by submission, but he's never even attempted a submission in the UFC in 88 minutes of time spent in control time positions. But Curtis Blades has a 2-inch reach advantage. He's more experienced overall with 6 more fights and 150 more minutes of cage time. He's more experienced at the UFC level with 10 more fights and 145 more minutes of octagon time. Curtis Blades is the better minute winner. Tom's the more explosive moment winner, but Curtis knows how to use his diverse MMA toolbox to win minutes, bank rounds, and win decisions. Curtis is 5-0 to the decision in the UFC, and the only fight in those 5 decisions where he even lost 1 round was the 5-round fight against Volkov, where Curtis absorbed some big strikes, but got 14 takedowns in almost 20 minutes of control time in that fight. Curtis is a dominant minute winner, while Tom has only won 1 fight as a pro that went past the first round, and he's never seen the scorecards as a professional. The strength of schedule advantage, that's Blades as well. Even though Aspinall has fought the more experienced brand of competition overall and at the UFC level, it's Blades who has 10 more fights in the UFC, and he's fought the guys with the better win-loss ratios on the aggregate. Blades fought Ngannou twice, Alexander Volkov, Sergey Pavlovich, Jailton Almeida, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Derek Lewis, to name a few. Both guys have fought a very solid level of competition, but I give Blades the strength of schedule advantage because he's been here longer and his opponents have had better win-loss ratios. So this is a hell of a fight for the interim heavyweight belt. This one has violence written all over it. Tom and Curtis have had 11 combined UFC fights that were scheduled for 5 rounds, and 10 of those 11 fights ended under 1.5 rounds. Tom Aspinall has been on fire in the UFC. Outside of the ACL tear against Blades, he's undefeated at 7-0. He's 2 years younger, 1 inch taller. He's the more explosive finisher wherever the fight goes, and his striking is some of the best I've ever seen in the heavyweight division due to his unusual combination of power and speed. Curtis is the more experienced fighter overall and in the UFC. He's got the UFC strength to schedule advantage. He's the more efficient minute winner, and his ability to be able to get takedowns and win minutes with his top control, as well as win minutes and finish fights with his brutal ground and pound, are elite for the heavyweight division. Aspinall looks like he's fighting at another level right now. His KO win over Pavlovich, a guy who brutally knocked out Curtis Blades in the first round, was a massive eye-opener. And frankly, he's been one of the most dominant heavyweights I've ever seen in the UFC due to his ability to be able to dominate his opponents at distance striking range with that speed, precision, and power combination that he has, as well as get takedowns and finish with ground and pound or submissions on the mat. I think Tom goes through blades in front of his home crowd like a hot knife through butter, and I predict that John Jones won't even show up to fight this guy, and instead vacate the belt instead of losing his undefeated record to a guy that I think would absolutely destroy him at this point. Tom does what he does best. I think he's going to finish Curtis Blades in the very first round by knockout here. I'm going with Tom Aspinall to continue doing exactly what he's been doing, and that's just plant his foot dead in the ass of his opponents. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Yeah, visa issue for Luque Diaz. Good. Let it be. Nick is out of the Luque fight. No real bets here, but I took sprinkles on Tom's sub 4-1 and round 2 sub at 22-1 and round 3 sub at 40-1. I like that. And he used the under 2.5 as a parlay piece. Best value play, favorite underdog and lock, says Jay Swift. Jay, I'm going to give you my underdog pick of the week after the Edwards main event, and I'm going to give you my ass shaving of the week, which is kind of like my lock of the week after that. Best value play this week, I would say my best value play, I don't mind Muhammad Mokaev by decision. Where is that? God damn, that is far off. Mokaev by decision at plus 165 isn't that bad. I also took long shots on Arnold Allen by sub at plus 900 and Kiefer Crosbie by first round knockout at plus 800. But let's move on to this main event. It is going to be Leon Edwards, the current champion, going up against, oh, let me hide that one here. And why isn't that scrolling? Edit, scroll across bottom. There we go. So Leon Edwards minus 250, Bilal Muhammad plus 210. Fight doesn't go to decision here. Plus money at plus 160. As the bookies see this going the distance, over 60% of the time. So let's talk about the trends for this fight after I get the stats up for you guys here. And once again, hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the great content that goes on this channel. Leave me a comment down below, and please consider joining the Patreon. $10 a month for the basic stats package, $25 a month for the probability package that has 4 hours of members-only content every week, all the betting models, all the stats, all the individual fighter stats, the fight write-ups, the track bets, access to the Discord, and you're helping your Uncle Weezy out. $25 a month, probability tier on the Patreon. Check it out, you guys. Main event. Let's talk about it so that I can finally eat dinner at like 1 o'clock in the morning when we're done here. So this is for the undisputed UFC welterweight championship of the world. Leon Edwards, the current champion, 32 years old, 22-3 in the UFC with a no contest. And he's 22-3 as a pro, 14-2 with a no contest in the UFC. 12-fight winning streak right now for Leon Edwards, and he's already successfully defended his title twice so far. He won the title in August of 22 with a unforgettable come-from-behind win against Kamaru Usman. He was a plus 290 underdog, and he won that with a head kick knockout in the 25th minute of the fight. Leon was clearly losing that fight. He needed a finish in the 5th, and he found it. Leon then defended the belt against Kamaru 7 months later, winning by majority decision as a plus 210 underdog. Leon's most recent title defense came against Colby Covington. He won a unanimous decision in that fight as a minus 160 favorite. Leon's a master minute winner. He's extremely defensively responsible. He's a low-volume counter striker that's fast, long, precise, and he's shown the ability to find a moment every now and then as well, one in particular that came at a very opportune time for Leon. Leon is defending his belt against a guy he already fought. Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, the fighting pride of Chicago, Illinois, is 36 years old. He's 23-3 with a no contest as a pro, and he's 14-3 with a no contest in the UFC. Bilal's on a 9-fight winning streak of his own. He's currently on a 14-month layoff after winning a unanimous decision against Gilbert Burns as a plus 125 underdog. Prior to that, Bilal had a very impressive second-round knockout win over Sean Brady at UFC 280. He was a plus 120 underdog in that fight. And before that, Bilal won a 5-round main event against Vicente Luque, avenging a prior loss to him, carving out a 49-46 unanimous decision in that fight. Bilal is a very smart and well-rounded fighter. He fights to the weaknesses of his opponents, and he crafts game plans that allow him to be able to win minutes and bank rounds on his way to a decision win. These two fought back in March of 2021. It ended in a no contest due to an eye poke. These two are both masters of they're both masters of winning minutes. I can't wait to see how this one turns out. Leon, the minus 250 favorite right now. So Leon's got all the measurables advantages. 3 years younger, 3 inches taller, 2-inch reach advantage, southpaw versus orthodox. I believe that Leon's the better striker. He's a master counter striker. He's very low volume, but he's accurate. He's hard to hit. He flashes power. Leon's accuracy at over 48% is excellent. He's got a 5-to-1 knockdown ratio in the UFC, and he's never been knocked out as a professional. So he's also very durable. And the strength of schedule advantage goes to Leon as well. Both guys have fought top-notch competition, but Leon's strength of schedule metrics are just slightly better than Bilal's. He's fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced guys with the slightly better win-loss ratios. Now, on the Muhammad side, you get the volume, you get the pace, and you get the pressure. Bilal has above average output, both at distance striking range and with his offensive wrestling output. Everywhere the fight goes, Bilal is active with his offensive output. On the feet, he's got a positive 0.8 distance striking differential. He lands 5.3 distance strikes per minute. He attempts 12.9. Those are both above average for the division. In control time positions, Bilal outcontrols his opponents 22% to 4%, winning over 84% of the control time positions that his fights are in. And Bilal's the better grappler. I do rate Bilal as the guy more likely to dictate where this fight takes place. Bilal has elite 93% takedown defense, and he gets 2 takedowns per 15 minutes in his own right. Leon is a guy who historically gives up more control time than he gets, and his takedown defense at 70% is solid, but he only wins 47% of the control time positions in his fights. So I do have to rate Bilal as the guy more likely to attempt and complete takedowns in this fight. And as a result, I think he's the more likely guy to win minutes with his wrestling, top control, and ground and pound. So this is a high-level main event between two well-rounded veterans of the sport. These two guys are a combined 28-5 at the UFC level, so it's no easy task to find a win against either of these guys. I believe this fight being in Manchester in the big cage does favor the Edwards side. Leon is younger, he's taller, he's longer, he's a southpaw with the better distance striking and slightly better strength to schedule at the UFC level. Bilal is the busier fighter in all areas of the fight. He's the guy more likely to win minutes in the grappling exchanges, and like Edwards, he's always in top condition and always fights to his strengths. I believe in order for Bilal to be successful, he needs to push a relentless pace with the wrestling. Leon is just too good if you give him space, and I don't believe Bilal has the kind of power to get Leon's respect. Leon's ability to manage distance with his kicks, land shots to all targets on the body, along with the power differential, is going to be too much for Bilal to overcome. However, if Bilal pressures nonstop, like Colby should have, he can take Leon away from what he does best and force him to defend takedowns and work his way out of clinch situations while mixing in his striking with his takedown attempts to make Leon more worried about defense. This is a tough row to hoe, though, for Belal. He's in front of a hostile crowd on a different continent against the current champion, and I don't believe he'll get a fair shake on the judges' scorecards if this fight goes the full 25 for reasons I'm just not going to go into here, but I touched on it last night on probability. I think Leon keeps this fight standing long enough to win the minutes and bank rounds. I also believe that even if Belal does have success with his wrestling and top control, that the judges might not bother to score it unless he lands a ton of ground and pound. There are too many narrative issues standing in Belal's way here, and I do think Leon will do the cleaner and more damaging work at range while stuffing enough takedown attempts to bank the rounds of this fight. And I think we hear and still after a hard-fought 25-minute war in the main event on Saturday. So the pick is going to be Leon Edwards and still by decision. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Just hit the thumbs up and glad to catch you live, Weezy. It is good to see you in here, Fender Jazz. Such great work you do, brother. Truly appreciate the kind words and appreciate you showing up for the end of the show, my man. Is there an over-under for eye pokes and fence holding? No, there is not, but you can get a point deduction prop on DraftKings Sportsbook, usually at plus 2,000 for a fight. But let's get out of here, you guys. 2.5 hours in. Let's give you the Bootsy Collins Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week. I don't like a lot of underdogs this week. I barely picked any, but the two that I did pick, well, let's see. Edwards favorite, Aspinall favorite, Pimblett pick'em, Duncan favorite, Chikadze is an underdog, Wood is a favorite, McCann a favorite, Loughran favorite, Prachnio underdog, Parsons favorite, Mokaev favorite, Patterson favorite, Parkin favorite, Bannon favorite. So I only picked 2 underdogs this week, and I'm going to give you a fat number here. I'm going with Marcin Prachnio by decision. We talked about this one already. I don't think I can count on Modestas Bukauskas to go out there and get takedowns and win minutes in the grappling situations against Prachnio. Prachnio might be chinny, but so is Modestas. Modestas has been knocked down and knocked out and finished at just as high of a rate as Prachnio. But Prachnio does more. He lands more. He's more accurate at distance. He's more defensively responsible at distance. He lands more distance strikes per minute than Bukauskas does, and he absorbs less per minute than Bukauskas does. So I just think that Prachnio is going to be getting the fight that he wants. And if he does get that fight that he wants, I don't think Bukauskas should be this big of a favorite against him. So I don't really have a lot of faith in Prachnio's power at this level. So instead of betting a full unit on his money line at plus 140, we can get Prachnio by decision, take that exposure, cut it in half, where if we lose the bet, we lose half the money we would have lost by just taking his money line, by getting him at his best win condition by decision at plus 310. So that is your Uncle Weezy's Memorial Dogs Are Barking pick of the week, which leaves us with one order of business left to take care of, and that is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Who's going to win this week and win violently? Who's going to win in a way that leaves us saying, oh, shit, that was an ass shaving, my friend. This is my most confident pick of the week. It's somebody I feel like I can count on to go out there and get finishes. Matthew Chalk likes Kape this week. We got Kekai Akagi in the room saying preparing for work and listening to Uncle. Life's never been better. He likes the Prachnio pick. But who is going to be Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week? Who's going to win violently this week? Now, we got it done last week. 3 weeks before that, because we had a week off and I had a week that I took off of content because of the dog bite, we are back on a 1-week winning streak. And Steve Garcia was a great pick at only minus 140, and he got a first-round knockout. So I'm looking to make it 2 in a row. And I'm taking a big favorite here this time, but I'm going to lower those odds for you by getting that big favorite at their best win condition. And this week's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week is going to be Tom Aspinall to shave the ass of Curtis Blades in rounds 1 or 2 at minus 167 on Bet Rivers Sportsbook. Curtis Blades has been finished in all of his losses, as we can see right here. All 4 losses coming inside the distance by KO. Tom Aspinall has finished all 14 or 100% of his wins inside the distance. And of those 14 wins, 13 of them come in the very first round. Of the 4 losses for, let me get this in there. We'll go to the homepage. Fight card. And if we look at Curtis Blades, when he's losing, round 1, round 2, round 1, stoppage at the end of round 2. So all 100% of Curtis Blades' finish losses take place in rounds 1 or 2. 100% of Tom Aspinall's career wins come in round 1 or 2. So why not make the ass shaving of the week Tom Aspinall to get that safety that we know he's going to win? But why not reduce that almost 400 money line that he's at right now to sub minus 200 so that we can get a much better price and get him by hit 100% of his finish condition and 100% of how Curtis Blades gets finished in his fights. So Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, Tom Aspinall to shave the ass of Curtis Blades in rounds 1 or 2, minus 167, Bet Rivers Sportsbook. 54 of you guys still hanging out live in here with your Uncle Weezy. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Hit that subscribe. Leave me a comment down below. And please consider joining the best Patreon for statistics and analytics and benchmarking and betting models that we have in the game right now. Patreon, Dub Club, support the work there. Thank you guys for your attention. Thank you for watching 2.5 hours into this show. So we're going to cut it off right now. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 304. Let's bathe in some bookie blood this week as we take these bookies for everything that they're worth, cashing a ton of bets. God bless each and every one of you. I'll be back on Friday for the Greasy 4-Leg Parlay right here on your Uncle Weezy's YouTube channel. And then on Saturday on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel for Best Bet. Check the links in the description of this video to check out this week's version of Stat Diggers and this week's version of Probability, which we put out on the internet for free. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck on all your bets, and we will see you guys on Friday. Good night.